Welcome to your Denver City Council. Please stand by. Full coverage of your Denver City Council begins now.
For joining us this afternoon. Tonight's meeting is being interpreted into Spanish. Alejandro, would you please introduce yourself and let our viewers know how to enable translation on their devices?
Yes, of course. Thank you for having us. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Guzman with the CLC, and along with my colleague Alejandro, we will be interpreting today's meeting into Spanish. I'll give instructions on how to access interpretation. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Samuel Guzmán con la CLC. Y juntamente con mi colega Alejandro estaremos interpretando la reunión al español. Si se une con nosotros virtualmente a través de Zoom, por favor busque en su pantalla el icono terráqueo que dice interpretación, oprima ese botón y de ahí seleccione la opción de escuchar en español. Si se une con nosotros presencialmente en la cámara y desea escuchar a la reunión en español, al fondo, a la derecha, encontrará asistentes que le pueden otorgar equipo para escuchar en español. Muchas gracias. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam. Welcome to the Denver City Council meeting on Monday, March 3rd, 2025. Council members, please rise as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council members, please join Councilmember Lewis as they lead us in the Denver City Council land acknowledgement.
The Denver City Council honors and acknowledges that the land in which we reside is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous people. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Cashman?
Here.
Opidras?
Here.
Flynn?
Here.
Gilmore?
Here.
Gonzalez Gutierrez?
Here.
Hines?
Here.
Lewis?
Present.
Parody?
Here.
Romero Campbell?
Here.
Sawyer?
Here.
Torres?
Here.
Watson?
Did Cashman say yo?
Yep.
Here.
Madam President?
Here.
13 members present.
There are 13 members present. Council has a quorum. Approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes of February 24th? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved. Council announcements. Are there any council announcements this afternoon? Councilman Parody, start us off.
Sorry, this is the most frivolous way to start, but moment of personal privilege. My daughter Imogen turns 7 on Thursday, so just wishing her a happy birthday. She really misses me on Monday nights. Thanks.
Birthday. Oh. Happy birthday to your daughter. How old? 7?
7.
Oh. Councilwoman Romero Campbell.
Thank you, Madam President. I just had 2 quick announcements. One, we have Denver Parks and Rec is going to be doing a visioning for Southmore Park. There is a meeting this Wednesday at Southmore Elementary School from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. and I would just like to invite people to attend. and give their input. And then we also have a Vibrant Denver conversation about the bond, and we're doing this in conjunction with District 5 and District 6. So Council members Cashman and Sawyer, and that is going to be on March 18th at 5 p.m. at Most Precious Blood. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Lewis.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to let folks know that we are having a coffee and tea with me on Saturday. So if you're interested in our coffee office hours, you can sign up by emailing our council district office directly, and we can get you the link to sign up. In addition to that, Councilman Watson and I are holding stakeholder meetings for our relocation bill. And so if you have an interest in participating in any of those conversations, you can email our council office or Councilman Watson's, although I didn't ask him that, to participate in those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Torres.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to take a couple minutes here and walk through a little bit of Colorado's history. On January 1st, 1989, the Colorado Constitution was amended to declare that English language is the official language of the state of Colorado. To hear that such an executive order would be signed at the federal level, declaring English the national language, it is disappointing. I want to share that Federico Pena, when he was mayor in 1988, on December 27th of 1988, just before that Colorado change was made, established an executive order, Executive Order 132, which said effective January 1, 1989, the Colorado Constitution was amended to declare that English language is the official language of the state of Colorado. While the language of this amendment may be seen by some as fairly innocuous, it has the potential to be misinterpreted by public officials and administrators and to foster divisiveness, discrimination, and unfairness within our community. Such destructive results must be avoided within the government of the City and County of Denver. It shall be the official policy of the City and County of Denver to continue providing translators and bilingual or multilingual material for programs and projects that reach out to those in our community who, for whatever reason, do not speak or read English. This includes, but is not limited to, those programs that affect public health and the safety of our citizens, as well as their constitutional rights. I bring this up because I want our residents to know that Denver will still continue to meet the needs of our multilingual communities and our monolingual speaking residents. In furtherance of this, a couple years ago, the mayor also established Executive Order 150, which formalizes the citywide language access program. This meeting is being translated into Spanish. I don't anticipate that changing anytime soon. It is one of the things that we're incredibly proud of in being able to reach any person at any point when they want to connect with their local government. Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Councilmember Torres. Such important information. Councilmember Alvidrez.
Yes, thank you, Council President, and thank you, Councilwoman Torres, for those words of support for all Denver residents. I definitely echo those concerns. I actually wanted to share some good news, which there's not enough of these days. Tomorrow, we'll be celebrating Mardi Gras in District 7 at Lucille's. We will be having an event from 4 to 7 p.m. hosted by the West Wash Park Neighborhood Association. There will be performances, a Mardi Pet Parade, and a DJ. So definitely a fun place to be tomorrow evening if you don't have plans. In addition to that, District 7 is looking to hire an intern. City of Denver Jobs, Google City of Denver Jobs and search City Council internship post. The applications are due by the end of this week, and interns will have the opportunity to learn about policy and legislative research, assist with constituent services, and create marketing and communication content. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Cashman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to let folks know in District 6 that on April 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Cook Park Recreation Center, we'll be hosting our second annual Academy in the Community. We'll have some 36 city agencies, and nonprofit city partners represented. It's a great time to get a lot of questions answered in one place, and we look forward to seeing everybody there. Again, April 16th, Cook Park Recreation Center at 5:30. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilmember Flynn.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councilwoman Torres. I chimed in after your remarks to point out to folks who might not be aware of their state's own history. When you mentioned the constitutional amendment to the Colorado Constitution, the original Colorado Constitution was written in 3 languages to recognize the diversity of different languages spoken here. The original Colorado Constitution, 1876, was written and published in English, German, and Spanish. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for that reminder, Councilmember Flynn. Councilmember Watson.
Thank you so much, Madam President. On a personal note, and to kind of elevate diversity, on Saturday, March 8th, my husband, Dr. Michael James Wenk, PhD, and I'm only saying this just to embarrass him, as he may be watching this from at home, and I will be celebrating our 20th anniversary. We met about 24 years ago. He purchased a house on the 2500 block of Lafayette in the Whittier neighborhood, and I lived at the 2700 block of Lafayette. We met in a neighborhood association meeting where all good citizens who engage in community process often meet at. We became fast friends for 4 years. After a night of watching sports at our favorite sports bar, the Hornet, which still stands, is still one of our favorite places down on Broadway. As I was driving my then very good friend home, he was sharing with me that he ended a relationship with someone that he was dating. And I shared, you know what, I ended a relationship with someone I was dating as well. And we began to talk, and I said, so Mike, I got some really great friends. I'd love to set you up with one of them if you would like. And as I was dropping him off to his house, he stopped and turned and looked me in the face. And any of you know my husband, he's extremely shy. He has never been to a city council meeting. He doesn't like crowds. But he looked me straight in the eye and he said, I don't want to date any of your friends. I think I want to date you. And from that day on, we have been together. He sold his house on the 2500 block of Lafayette, and I sold my house on the 2700 block of Lafayette. And as with any good gay rom-com, we bought a house right in the middle on the 2600 block of Lafayette to live together forever in love. And so I want to say, honey, I know this embarrasses you, but I love you to death. Thank you for giving me the best 20 years plus of my life. And I look forward to our future adventures. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Sawyer.
Thank you, Madam President. It's really hard to go after that. Congratulations, happy anniversary. That is amazing. I just wanted to call everyone's attention to the fact that it is just after the first weekend in March, and that means that it is state sports season in the state of Colorado. So I want to give a huge shout out to George Washington High School. Both the girls and boys basketball teams have moved on to the round Sweet 16. I also want to give a shout out to the George Washington High School speech and debate team. They have been the state champions for the last 2 years. In a heartbreaker on Saturday night, they lost the state championship to East High School. I'm looking at you, Councilmember Hines, by 2 points. So, this is a, yes, we want to celebrate our sports. We also want to celebrate our academics. I'm really excited for all of the kids at George Washington High School, but want to acknowledge all of the kids in high schools across the city of Denver and the state of Colorado who are participating in some of the biggest and most exciting events happening in the state championships in the next couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you. And I will just use a moment of personal privilege and wish my daughter Isabella a very happy birthday tomorrow. I won't say how old she is because it will age me. She's not 7, let's just say that. Yeah, a few times, maybe times 3, a little bit more than that even. So happy birthday to my daughter. And for those who might be interested, Sheridan Boulevard, there's a safety study that's happening right now, and you can share your experience and ideas about transportation safety, where and when you feel safe traveling along Sheridan. If you go to engage.drcog.org/Sheridan Safety, Sheridan is a high injury network within my council district, so want to make sure we get as many people taking this survey as possible. And the goal of the survey is to improve the experience of those traveling along Sheridan. Seeing no other members in the queue, there are no presentations, there are no communications, there are no proclamations being read this afternoon. Madam Secretary, please read the bills for introduction.
From the Finance and Governance Committee, 25-0167, a bill for an ordinance authorizing a capital equipment purchase from the Climate Protection Special Revenue Fund. 25-0203, a bill for an ordinance amending ordinance number 1711, series of 2024, to change the appropriation program for the Transfer to Innovation Fund projects ZI-902. 25-0205, a bill for an ordinance approving a proposed permanent easement between the City and County of Denver and Urban Land Conservancy for a permanent easement for utilities at 1498 North Irving Street to Urban Land Conservancy, doing business as Avondale Commons, LLC, in Council District 3. 25-0207, a bill for an ordinance approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver and Colorado Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire Prevention and Control, prescribed burn services, fuel reduction / mitigation, training, and other activities as described to allow Colorado Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire Prevention, and other activities as described, and to allow access to Denver Mountain Parks to activities. From the Land Use, Transportation, and Infrastructure Committee, 25-0195, a bill for an ordinance amending sections 39-121 3A of the revised Municipal Code of the City and County of Denver regarding the schedule for use of facilities specifically for the Denver Zoological Gardens. 25-0196, a bill for an ordinance amending section 39-121 of the revised Municipal Code of the City and County of Denver to add facility use fees regarding certain facilities at and within Dedees Park. From the Safety, Housing, Education, and Homelessness Committee, 24-1279, a bill for an ordinance approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver and School District Number 1 in the City and County of Denver and the State of Colorado to provide reliable, healthy food access and food-based education for Denver's children at Bruce Randolph School as part of the Healthy Food for Denver's Kids initiative.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council members, this is your last opportunity to call out an item. Councilmember Lewis, will you please make the motions for us this evening?
Yes, Council President Sandoval.
Thank you. Now I will do a recap. Under resolutions, Councilmember Lewis has called out Resolution 0184 for a vote, Council Resolution 0189 for a vote, Council Resolution 0159 for questions and comments, and Council Resolutions 0186 and 0190 for questions and comments. Councilmember Parity has called out Council Resolution 0175 for questions and comments. Under bills for introduction, Councilmember Lewis has called out Council Bill 0167 for a vote. Under bills for final consideration, no items have been called out. Under pending, no items have been called out. Madam Secretary, please put the first item on our screens. Resolution 0184, approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver, BL Holdings, concerning occupancy and use of building located at 4347 Airport Way for Denver International Airport. Council President Pro Tem Romero Campbell, will you please put Council Resolution 250184 on the floor for adoption?
Yes. I move that Council Resolution 25-0184 be adopted.
It has been moved and seconded. Comments by members of council? Councilmember Lewis?
Thank you. I'm calling this one out because this one is for a 10-year lease. The airport has the option to purchase the building after 1 year, and I do not believe that this is a feasible timeline to make an informed decision about whether to buy. The building will require some renovations before it's occupied, and while the lease starts to run only after those renovations are complete, I'm worried that the 1 year is not enough time to make an informed decision, but also that 10 years is a long time to be locked into a lease for a building that we will not know if it suits the long-term use for the city, and so I'm a no on this item for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, roll call on Council Resolution 250184.
Cashman? Cashman?
Aye.
Olvidres?
Aye.
Flynn?
Aye.
Gilmore?
Aye.
Gonzalez Gutierrez?
Aye.
Hines?
Aye.
Cashman? Lewis?
Nay.
Parity?
Aye.
Romero Campbell?
Aye.
Sawyer?
Aye.
Torres?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Madam President?
Aye. Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
1 nay, 12 ayes.
12 ayes, 1 nay. Council Resolution 0184 has been adopted. Madam Secretary, please put the next item on our screen in a block. 0186, a resolution approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver, Dock One Solutions, to design, build, and manage a mile-high game day concession. Resolution 0190, a resolution approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver, Dock One Solutions, to design, build, and manage a mile-high game day concession on Concourse B. Councilmember Lewis, please go ahead with your questions on Council Resolution 0186 and 0190.
Thank you. So I initially called these items out because I could not tell the difference between the two items. They look the same, but after speaking with Den, I had my questions answered on how they are different. But for those of you who may have read the items and who may have shared my confusion, these are two contracts because one applies to the east side and one to the west side of Concourse B. And so sometimes these items in the city's legislative software are difficult to distinguish, at least for me anyways. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Madam Secretary, please put the next items on our screen. Resolution 0189, approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver, Den Hospitality Group, to manage Starbucks concession and the cruise room concession, both on Concourse A mezzanine. Council President Pro Tem Romero Campbell, will you please put Council Resolution 0189 on the floor for adoption?
I move that Council Resolution 25-0189 be adopted.
It has been moved and seconded. Comments by members of council? Councilmember Lewis.
No comments.
Madam Secretary, roll call on Council Resolution 0189.
Cashman?
Aye.
Olvidres?
Aye.
Flynn?
Aye.
Gilmore?
Aye.
Gonzalez Gutierrez?
Aye.
Hines?
Aye.
Lewis?
Nay.
Parity?
Nay.
Romero Campbell? Sawyer?
Aye.
Torres?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Madam President?
Aye. Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
2 nays, 11 ayes.
11 ayes. Council Resolution 25-0189 has been adopted. Madam Secretary, please put the next item on our screens. Resolution 0175, approving a proposed agreement to master purchase order between the City and County of Denver, Stone Security LLC, for the purchase and installation of IP camera maintenance citywide. Councilmember Parity, please go ahead with your questions on Council Resolution 0175.
Yeah, this is one where we reached out to the agency today to try to find out more about this contract because I noticed that this same purchase order was recently extended and it's just a large dollar value. We didn't see it coming through too far in advance, and so we just made that outreach today. I don't know if there's anyone from Tech Services, I believe, is the agency here to answer questions on this item or not, and I will pause to see if there is. Or if not, then maybe the mayor's office. But
is there anyone, Chris Hagan, virtually? Yep, can you promote him, please, Tim?
Thank you. Mr. Hagan, can you hear us yet?
He's on
Not
the
yet.
way.
Oh, sorry about that.
No problem. Takes a minute sometimes for them to accept the promotion.
Yeah. I was just worried he was waiting to be called on.
Chris Hagan, if you're on Zoom, can you please accept your promotion? We have some questions for you.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now. Go ahead, Councilmember Parity.
Thank you, Madam President. Chris, nice to meet you. My office noticed that we, I believe, approved an additional $1 million for Stone Security just in September 24, which was about 4 months ago. And this is a contract that ends in September of 2025. So I'm just trying to understand the need for the increase.
Yeah, and to be transparent, I don't believe we added enough at the time with all of the work that we have around safety and security, all the micro communities, hotels, migrant intake facilities, along with a large grant-funded city council project with Parks and Rec to add 13 Parks and Rec sites. We have gone through most of that money. I think we have maybe 200-ish dollars left on that contract.
Thank you. And could you back up and tell me, does this exactly what the scope of this contract can cover? Is it mostly security cameras, or is there other pieces to that?
Yeah, there's a couple other pieces, but essentially it touches most of our agencies. It covers your typical spend for life cycles of cameras, preventative maintenance, support. So if a camera goes down, we can replace it. It also is how we do all of our large projects, construction projects, whether that be a CIP bond or FIT project. And then also, obviously, all the licensings that go on with the cameras themselves.
Okay, thank you so much. That's helpful. With apologies that this didn't catch my eye any sooner, Madam President, I think what I'd like to do is use Rule 3.6 or 7, whichever one it is now, to postpone this for a week.
Okay. Given that, is that noted, Madam Secretary? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yep. Madam Secretary, please put the next item on our screens, Resolution 0159, approving a proposed agreement between the City and County of Denver, Volunteers of America Colorado branch to be used to provide rental assistance using a rapid rehousing model and wraparound support services to literally, I didn't understand this when I read this, but to literally homeless households who have experienced or fleeting domestic violence citywide. Councilmember Lewis, please go ahead with your comments on Council Resolution 0159.
Thank you. So I don't actually have a problem with this contract. I'm calling it out because I'm looking forward to the resolution between Host and the FACTS partnership coming soon. To the VOA recently submitted their 90 days, so they will be exiting in my district, and so that's not a lot of time. So I'm looking forward to resolutions. I just wanted to call that out and have that on record. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please put the next item on our screens. Council Bill 0167, an ordinance authorizing a capital equipment purchase from the Climate Protection Special Revenue Fund. Council President Pro Tem Romero Campbell, will you please put Council Bill 0167 on the floor for publication?
I move that Council Bill 0167 be ordered published.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments by members of council? Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you. So I called this one out for a vote, not because I disagree with electrifying the city fleet, nor DPD's desire to electrify their fleet. I just disagree with the funding source. DPD is able to draw from a whole host of funds when it comes to fleet replacement. In contrast, the funding source that they would be drawing from is the Climate Protection Fund, which has 6 allowable uses, and I think that this pilot could be done by drawing from a different funding source, which do not distinguish between gas vehicle purchase and EV purchases. In other words, the Climate Protection Fund can only be used for climate purchases, but other funds are not restricted in this way. Changing the funding source will still allow for the EV pilot, but would also preserve Climate Protection Fund dollars for uses that cannot be funded in other ways. And so for that reason, I'm a no on this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other council members in the queue, Madam Secretary, roll call on Council Bill 0167.
Cashman,
Aye.
Olvidres,
Aye.
Flynn,
Aye.
Gilmore, Gonzalez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Hines,
Aye.
Lewis,
Nay.
Parity,
Nay.
Romero Campbell,
Aye.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Torres,
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Madam President,
Aye. Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
2 nay, 11 ayes.
11 ayes, Council Bill 250167 has been ordered published. That includes the items to be called out. All bills for introduction are ordered published. Council members, remember that this is a consent or block vote and you will need to vote aye. Councilmember Lewis, will you please put the resolutions for adoption and the bills on final consideration for final passage on the floor?
I move that the resolutions be adopted and bills on final consideration be placed upon final consideration and do pass in a block vote for the following items. 25. Sorry.
That's a big sigh there.
Sorry, y'all. 250185, 250186, 250187, 250188, 250190, 241864, 250175, 250177, 250178, 250198, 250199, 250200, 250202, 250204, 250206, 250176, 250179, 250180, 250197, 250053, 250159, 250160, 250161, 250181, 250182, 250183, 250165, 250147, 250151, 250087, 250094. That's it.
All right.
Bingo.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, it has been moved and seconded. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Cashman,
Aye.
Olvidres,
Aye.
Flynn,
Aye.
Gilmore,
Aye.
Gonzalez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Hines,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Parity,
Aye.
Romero Campbell,
Aye.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Torres, Watson.
Aye.
Madam President,
Aye. Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
13 ayes.
13 ayes. The resolutions have been adopted and the bills have been placed upon final consideration and do pass. Tonight, Council will hold a required public hearing on Council Bill 0132 concerning the licensing and regulation of business activities regarding certain natural medicine healing centers and the regulation of natural medicine. If there are no objections from members of council, we will recess until 5:30. Before convening the regular meeting, City Council will provide a half-hour general public comment session to hear from the public on city matters, except for any matter that is scheduled for a legally required public hearing. The general public comment session will begin right at 5.
It's not a sunny day for this fallen street sign, but how do I report this? And what else can I report? How about graffiti? Potholes too? What about issues with snow removal? Wow, Sunny makes it so easy to report issues in my neighborhood. I wonder what else Sunny can help with.
Reach new heights with Elevating Denver, the monthly program dedicated to the people, events, and services in the Mile High City. In February on Elevating Denver, consumer input creates Denver's inclusive guide.
Envision yourself just living your best life.
Denver Sheriff Department has a word of warning.
There have been very sophisticated scammers, and unfortunately there have been victims that have fallen for this.
The Owl Club provides a vibrant community experience.
You sure you want to play that card, young fella?
Those stories and more are on the next episode of Elevating Denver.
On this episode of How to Denver, how to sign up for the Snow Angels program. The Denver Snow Angels program is an initiative that connects Denver community members needing assistance shoveling their front sidewalks, including adjacent ADA ramps and bus stops during the cold winter months, with neighbors interested in helping. If you want to receive assistance, go to denvergov.org/snowangels. You can also email snowangels@denvergov.org. Make sure you meet the eligibility requirements, which are: you must be a Denver resident, must be an older adult who is unable to shovel, and or be a resident living with a disability, and be unable to pay for a shoveling service. If you meet the requirements, fill out the short questionnaire and you'll be connected with a neighbor in your area. If you previously registered, please do so again. Please be patient, as every part of town doesn't yet have Snow Angels signed up. And if you want to help your neighbors and sign up to be a Snow Angel, the process is the same. Email or go to the website to sign up, select the neighborhoods you're able to assist, and when it snows, you'll be notified via email of which residents in your selected neighborhoods could use some help. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more how-to videos like this. And if there are any city services you want to learn how to take advantage of, leave a comment down below.
Experience the magic of Denver, 1 mile-high moment at a time. Have you visited the Westwood neighborhood? It's a diverse and culturally rich section of the Mile High City. A drive down Morrison Road reveals a brightly colored celebration of Hispanic culture. Vibrant murals are everywhere you turn, while restaurants up and down the street offer up delicious cuisines. Westwood is home to several prominent festivals throughout the year and is an excellent place to enjoy Cinco de Mayo. Just around the corner from Morrison Road is the legendary Far East Center and the Little Saigon District, part community center and part shopping center. The Far East Center also hosts one of the biggest Lunar New Year celebrations in the state. Don't miss out on this important corner of our city and visit Westwood today. That's just one of many mile-high moments to enjoy in Denver.
Do you live in Denver? We know you want to stay updated on all the things that make our city great. Sign up for the Denver Local, a newsletter with all the info you need from your local government in one place. Signing up is easy at denvergov.org/denverlocal. You can also follow Elevating Denver for exclusive video content on our YouTube channel and broadcast on Denver Channel 8 Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Connect to your city. Connect with community. With the Denver Local and Elevating Denver.
And their way through it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Yeah.
Acknowledgement and finding a way through it.
Yeah.
Or realizing, hey, I'm in the midst of still finding my way through it.
Yes. Yeah. And it's okay. Like, nothing's wrong with you for feeling fear, you know, but you can't let the fear make the decisions.
Wow. Okay, now I wish I worded it. All that stuff I just said. Yeah, what he said.
I was thinking about how, like, when
what he said.
I was thinking about how, like, when a deer is caught in headlights, right? Like, out of fear, they freeze, but that actually puts them in more danger
because,
you know,
they stop.
Because fear made a decision, right? They stop. Yeah, I've been thinking about, you know, I don't talk about it a lot on this podcast, but, you know, I used to rap. I used to hire jazz musicians to back me and stuff like that. And what it was like in the late 90s, early 2000s, the external obstacles to making music was like, I had to save up 5 to 7 G's for like a MPC sampler, or, you know, another 10 G's to get in the studio. And there were all these sort of like things that I had to work towards. Whereas now, like, you know, you can pretty much do it all on your phone, you know, if you're really industrious. And it's interesting to, because I guess at that age, I thought that the external obstacles were what was stopping me and my friends from doing things. But now that things are so much, there are a lot fewer external obstacles to create. Yeah, because the business, as you mentioned, is a whole different thing. But the people, so now like it's just like all you gotta do is create. And now I see how much fear is gripping people. So that's why that's a really important question to me.
It really is, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I'm interested in hearing how you balance art and commerce, right? Because, some people believe that art has no value if you can't make a living off of it. Of course, I don't agree with that. I think art has value just because it's art. But if you want to make a living off of it, then there are things you have to do to approach it differently. So for you as a creative person who's making a living at what you do, I don't know, what are your thoughts about how to balance that for people?
Yeah. For me, I realized early that part of what speaks to people with my art is coming from a place where I thought everything I created was from an honest place, but sometimes very, very vulnerable moments where I'm creating, and oftentimes those are the moments that people respond to over the years to come. And because of that, I knew that was part of my creative purpose. I have to keep feeding that. And because of that, I knew in order for me to tap from that space, I have to work with blinders on at times where I'm really focused on just giving something honest to the world and then see where we go from there. Knowing that I've been afforded the opportunity to be in the music business, to sustain myself and to now have a family, you have no choice but to think about that other side.
Right.
While you're being unapologetically yourself and being creative, life is happening.
Right.
So for me, it was a decision. How am I going to choose to be unapologetically in the moment, yet acknowledge and move in this business itself? And I chose to do both. And for me, that answer was, okay, make sure I understand about writing and, writing as much as possible, owning what as much as you can.
Yeah.
But a big thing, writing and understanding on the performance side, the music business it's a people business, so oftentimes if you start by just not working to be, great at what you do, but also not burning bridges,
right?
Be surprised. That is actually in the music business, that is one of the greatest tools that anybody, can have right now. And I don't mean, sucking up to people and all that stuff. No, I just mean, be your true self, but also work within this business with a certain empathy and a certain level of respect for any situation you're in. I chose to honor each situation. A lot of financial breakthroughs that happened for me came from moments where I wasn't even thinking about the money. It was just about, creating a product and valuing a relationship, and things worked out financially from that. So how do I honor? Okay, for my journey, it was really, relationship based. How do I keep that and value that and make sure I'm owning as much of the situation that I can, and then see where that takes me. And ownership for me and the writing side of it, that's kind of been, the thing that has allowed me to be able to still give the time, to write and think, and approach things in a very fearless way where I'm not chasing mainly what's like happening around me, in a way, allowing that all to inform my decision, because that's the world we're in, but not allowing that to just affect my art and my creative. It's been that balance of, okay, in the meanwhile, let me write and make sure, own as much as I can. And I give love. We started just talking about the Marcus Millers and the Terrence Blanchards.
Yeah.
Those were things that I saw early with him. Terrence Blanchard, you couldn't even be in his band and write. He and his wife, who was his manager at the time, Robin Burgess, they made sure, no, you got 100% writers of anything you did. They helped me get my publishing administrating set up, my publishing all together.
Yeah.
When I didn't even know yet all the way what I needed to be working on, so I'm thankful that people were helping, putting me on game in that way too. But I would say the first thing try to own what you can. And the beauty of it is creatives now, they have so many ways of creating. They can, work with different people now, but really you can start creating now.
Yeah.
You don't have to split all this stuff because, you just wanted to get into a certain studio to work with somebody. No,
Right.
you can record right on your laptop. While you're on a plane, and
Right.
all this stuff. So I would say, never think it's too early to start registering as much as music that you have, documenting it. If you, like I keep mentioning voice memos, but all these ways of documenting ideas, that you have, that's actually documenting ideas and time stamping it. Don't be afraid to do that. For instrumentalists, the biggest thing I say, don't burn the bridge. It kind of works in reverse. I've seen many once they get the golden opportunity, they blow it by not necessarily understanding fully what is perceived as their value financially in the market. So they ask for something that they are unaware that many aren't even getting, so then they show the ignorance there and then go off on people and then burn a bridge to that.
I've seen that.
And understanding it's a people business and maneuvering and not blowing and wasting your money. I think for me, that was the biggest thing. I stopped wasting money, like spending money on all kind of things here and there or the flash of things. I decided instead, to invest in my MPC, and get my laptops and get my, mic pre's and spend all this money on all that stuff when others were saying, hey, look, man, you got to look a certain way. I understand that too, but I decided to just keep investing so I could feed that curiosity, which for me was film scoring.
Yeah.
And that ended up being some of the best investments. So that when they said, hey, D, I see you hustling, I'm putting you on your first film this week.
Nice.
I'm like, oh, I have my laptop here. I have my Mac G5 at the time here, and I'm willing to create. And that started with an investment into yourself. So I tell people, no matter what they're doing, oftentimes be willing to invest in themselves early and be frugal. Like, start with something that is so don't be afraid to work.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to take a job. Some of the greatest creators that are living, if you go back in their story, they had jobs, they did this and that. Like, be willing by any means necessary to do what you feel like you need to do to feed that curiosity. And that sometimes requires thinking outside the box, not thinking you're a failure because you're not making 100% of your money from the music business. That may come, but be willing to see yourself as an entity where something else can fuel that. Something else that you're doing, an investment that you're doing, learning about money and investment, that could end up fueling your music where you can make unapologetic decisions later in the music business.
Yeah.
So be willing to think in those ways, not necessarily how do I make the most money by charging the most from one specific thing.
This is great, man.
Yeah, man.
So I've only been writing like 5 or 6 years, and figuring out these things, it's a really interesting thing to so many people that I talk to who are creatives in any arena.
Mm-hmm.
I find like one of the biggest problems is not knowing what exactly you want, like not having a clear goal.
Yeah.
Like, what is success for you? Like as a writer, is success for you getting published by a major publisher? Or is it making a living? Because those are not always the same thing, And so like the stuff you're talking about where like, because, some people do music because of the flash. They want the attention and stuff like that. You're talking about investing in your equipment, investing in the things that will allow you to sustain the business of music. And because your goal was to make music.
That was my, the way that I like making music.
Yes, right. In a way that was like whole and true to you.
Yes.
And so I think like, what I hear in what you're saying is that it's very important to identify what represents a certain level of success for you and then make decisions that guide you towards that.
Absolutely.
And then once you reach that, there's another one. Like, there's not like a, you've reached it. It's not like you're finished, It's a whole life journey.
Yeah. And I got to say, you mentioned something that I failed to say. That's been one of the biggest things for me that I thought, I'm putting pride aside, I thought didn't make much of a difference. And I thought in my mind things were clear.
Mm-hmm.
I thought in my mind, given goals in a certain moment, I thought it was clear.
Yeah.
But I was encouraged. Like, D, stop talking about it. Write it down. Write something down. Like I'm speaking things to the voice. For me, it was, I started to listen, like, let me just write these ideas down. Like thoughts where I feel like I am now, what do I want to do? Write it. What I think is so clear, when I wrote it out, it was like, first of all, it made it real how I saw my reality.
Yeah.
And it made it real how unclear in certain ways what I wanted to happen, was. And it was like, oh man, writing it down helped me so much.
Yeah.
So I encourage, like, it doesn't even matter the extent, just start by being willing to write down what you think you want to do.
Yeah.
And where you think you want to go, what you think are your obstacles, what you think are things that are already working for you. Who are the people in your life that can help you get to that? Write things down.
I like that.
That's a
yeah, because I feel like when it's in your emotions in your mind, it's like trying to grab water, right? Like,
man,
it's so formless, but when you put it down, it becomes a tangible thing that you can evaluate and be like, is this realistic? How can I make it realistic? Like all the stuff you just talked about.
Yeah. And even sometimes once writing it down, seeing, oh man, okay, that's part of who I am too. Writing something down that doesn't feel realistic.
Yeah.
But I'm not erasing it.
Right.
I'm going to see what, nice. And that too. Yeah. But it took me writing it down to help me not be scatterbrained and, all of a sudden now, and that bad idea is gone. I didn't realize it was gone.
Right.
I forgot I even had the idea in the first place. For me, so many things changed when I wrote things. I started writing things down. Yeah.
Okay, brother. So you, multiple tours, multiple albums, movie, TV scores. What's next for you? Like where you want to go?
Man, I'm thankful right now for all that has happened. I feel like it's all led to a space now to just feed in a very clear way that my life is about giving.
Yeah.
And making sure I'm providing an environment and a platform for other creatives to be fearless and be free and be themselves. And a movement now with Color of Noise, which was the name of my last album, which is also reflecting this movement attached to everything that I'm doing, which is about acceptance of self and self-love and allowing what you think of yourself and whatever people think of you, like throw that all into a melting pot and just allow opinions to be and just be and move.
Mm-hmm.
Color of Noise mainly, though, is about me not just speaking it, making sure any opportunity that I have, I'm now outreaching and making sure those that want to be a part of it know that they can be fearless and work on whatever they want to do within that frame. So I'm excited. I have a Color of Noise tour going through August where I'm, touring with the band. Some of the musicians on the record, Color of Noise, I had just met 10 minutes before we recorded.
Wow.
Which was really about that spirit of self-love and acceptance. So, we've been touring that, not just speaking about it and having a cool album, but making sure the members of the band reflect that acceptance, self-love, what they have to say. And that whole album was done in first takes. So putting that all out there, I'm trying to, really honor that. So with the Color of Noise orchestra that we're putting together right now, it's all in an attempt to reflect all that. So we're going to have performances going starting in 2024. I'm thankful to have been working with a lot of symphonies, over the years. But now, aside with continuing to do that, this Color of Noise platform, musicians will be able to come work with me, play my music, and perform with different artists, do recordings with me. And we're now working on actually having a tangible space where I can actually work on my music. People can watch, be a part. Outside of the music school system, like I want to actually be an environment for them all to be able to come and be free. We teach, and then I also spend an hour a day even just listening to ideas that people have. So I want people to look out for that. Everything is just connected to Color of Noise, that brand, that idea. So
I gotta say, man, hearing your life's journey, the Color of Noise feels like a natural evolution of everything that you've been doing in your life. Like that thing about, like I keep saying, being gentle with yourself. You're saying self-acceptance. that thing of being curious and being like open and giving
and feeding it.
Yeah, it feels like it all has led to this. So that's really dope to hear that it's all kind of come together in this dope way.
Thank you. And like I was saying, that I feel like it's not by coincidence. Like if it was a plan that I can't honestly say the steps that have happened and certain things that have happened, that have gained attention. The timing of it was not something that I always planned for, but I think about the opportunities that happened within it. Oh, it wasn't just about that. It was also showing up early and realizing there was somebody there that had been waiting to just let me hear something they're working on for 10 minutes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then that song ends up 2 years later being picked up and people are listening to it on the radio all the time,
Right.
Because of that and realizing that was part of my story.
Yeah.
Somebody had to reach back and put me on my first tour when I was in college. I feel like it's all led to this moment, to not just
when you were 12.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's crazy. So I feel like this is a natural evolution. I'm glad it's coming across that way because from here on out, man, it's about feeding that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a side note, what brought you out west?
My wife is from Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. So we were in LA. We had our first child and no family.
Yeah.
I was flying her here every time. I went on tour and we said, let's try it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad, man. We moved here. I've been here 8 years now.
Okay. Nice.
And I love it, man.
Yeah.
Denver's cool. Everybody's chill,
Same. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel like it's not the place to go. Like if I needed cultural validation, but I grew up in an all black city,
Same. Yeah.
But what I love is that the art scene, all the art scenes, they're all very supportive. Like different cliques, they all show up and support each other.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place to be creative.
And I'm discovering that actually now.
Yeah.
I'm discovering that more and more now. And even the underlying, like the cultural thing, there are a lot of, transplants that are here.
Yeah.
And when I actually get to know people in the neighborhood, it's like, okay, a lot of people are here that want that, but there is sometimes everybody's kind of spaced out. You might not even know your neighbor, is connected to all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, and I'm excited for even platforms like this to speak about it because to see where we can go with Color of Noise here and galvanizing, so many and just opening the eyes. Hey, there's a platform where people can just come, an environment people can just come and be.
Yeah.
If they want to come and just do art. While I'm in the next room working on something, they can do art all day. And if that leads to conversation, it's the creative. And then we go from there. That's how, true cultural moments happen.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. I see an opportunity here in Denver at the same time because on the surface, it does seem like that the cultural thing might be lacking, but I think there's promise there.
Word.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. So I like to wrap up with 2 questions. The first is, where can people find you, connect with you, online, website, whatever?
Absolutely. People can find me on DerekHodge.com.
Right on.
Social media handles, IG is just The Hodge World. Twitter, Derek Hodge, Facebook, official Derek Hodge.
Nice.
And, on any one of those platforms, they can kind of just join on.
Dope.
Just be a part of my journey.
Okay.
Definitely being clear with everything we have going on in the future. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, man. I'm excited about it. Honestly, it sounds dope.
Thank you, brother.
Last question is, what is inspiring you creatively these days? Music, books, movies? Like what have you been digging? What has been feeding you?
What's been feeding me now is just the cultural moments that I've had an opportunity to be involved with over the last 2 years, and really choosing to just feed that and figuring out ways to just feed that no matter what.
Yeah.
With last year in particular, with the Oscars and the Grammys and Super Bowl and all that stuff, I'm so thankful. But to have been able to create for that stuff right here in Denver, Colorado, those scores, realizing that's going out into the world like that, it's just pushed me to just pursue this Color of Noise thing and make sure that people all the way know that's happening and that things aren't necessarily happening in the biggest studio in LA. Like you see, like it's all reflected to my story.
Yeah.
Self-acceptance. You can write this stuff while in the coffee shop.
Right.
And I felt like I just wasn't doing enough to make that clear. Like the way ideas happen that people are celebrating. No, it's happening in a very modest way. So now it's just, okay, how do I make sure that's clear? How do I create more moments, to make sure that people are seeing my process and how I'm doing it?
Yeah. No, I love it. It feels like you're creating an environment for more creativity to take place. And it feels like that's like where like the Harlem Renaissance came from, or like any movement where there's a group of people, like even the beat poets, right? Like there's a group of people who find an environment where they can be creative together, and then something beautiful grows out of it.
Absolutely.
And it feels like you're sowing the seeds for that, which is really dope.
Oh man, listen, I'm put it to test, man. We brothers now. I'm gonna bug you. We're gonna get together, But I feel like I'm glad it's coming across that way, because that's the hope.
Yeah.
Just to make sure people know that these moments that they're celebrating, I appreciate it, and likes and all that. But in reality, I want to support and make sure they know, okay, how it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
How it happened.
Right on.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to end, brother.
I'm excited.
Hey, I really appreciate you talking to me. It's been a really dope conversation, man.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Right on.
I appreciate you.
Right. Special thank you to today's guest, Derek Hodge. Thank you to the listeners. If you're not already, please be sure to subscribe to How Art is Born wherever you get your podcasts for more episodes. And if you can, leave a review. It really helps out. Check out MCA Denver on YouTube and subscribe to the channel to watch the video version of this podcast and get behind-the-scenes clips from today's episode. Visit MCA Denver's current exhibitions, Tamashi Jackson, Across the Universe, and Anna Sularkis, Indigenous Absurdities. How Art is Born is produced and edited by Dele Johnson and executive produced by Courtney Law. Additional thanks to Rachel Grammis for their work on marketing support for this episode. I'm our Alan Brooks. I'm the host of How Art is Born.
And I'm Dele Johnson. I am editor and producer of the show.
Do people ever call you DJ? Did you have a DJ period?
Yeah. So funny enough, I usually use that at restaurants, like fast food, fast casual.
Yeah.
I'm having a tough time with words today. I usually say DJ. For my order name. Yeah. And at an old job, because of my radio gig at my previous job, they would call me DJ sometimes. Yeah.
I know a guy who used to be a major in the military. His name was Fred Minor. So I was like, you were Major Minor? And he was like, yes.
Oh, gosh. Well, he brought it on himself.
Right. Anyway, so with the guest today is Thomas Detour Evans. Detour and I have known each other in the art scene around Denver for a long time. We talk about this a little bit in the interview, but there was a period where I was applying for a residency at the Denver Art Museum, and Detour got it, which was great. But, at first I was like, who got this instead of me? But then I saw it was him, and I was like, yeah.
Makes sense.
He's the one. He should get it.
Yeah.
But it's been cool to see him sort of build his art career as I've built mine. We've had sort of like this parallel thing, but he's just a really cool and engaging brother, and his mind is always working like really fast. And you'll see it in the interview, like, he just talks about a lot of different things that led to him sort of being who he is as an artist today. And I think that's probably one of the most fascinating things, is just seeing how his mind works on all these things.
Absolutely. It's like he lived like 4 lives before he became an artist, and he's still been an artist at the level that we know him to be an artist at for like a decade.
Right.
And you're in for a real treat, because you're going to learn things that I don't know if anyone knows about him.
We'll just call this one The Evolution of Detour. You guys check it out. Welcome to How Art is Born, a podcast from the Museum of Contemporary Art Denver about the origins of artists and their creative and artistic practices. I'm your host, R. Alan Brooks, artist, writer, and professor. Today I'm joined by Denver-based all-around creative Thomas Detour Evans. Say hello.
Hello.
Hey man, thank you for being on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Denver-based artist, go by Detour. I do murals, interactive work with technology. I do, any coding type of web sort of application stuff too. I'm into that. I guess a little bit of storytelling after I met with you a while ago. Yeah. So I guess a little bit of everything, man. So try to get
That's
into
dope.
everything.
All right. Well, so for people who are listening, like there's this sort of constant theme that people that I'm talking to on this podcast, I've met them on the dance floor or at Goodness or one of those kind of things. And I feel like those were the kind of first times that you and I saw or interacted with each other.
Yeah, because I was breakdancing like when I first moved there in Denver. I was breakdancing, organized competitions, and then doing DJing as well because I was into music and I always needed a DJ for my event. So I was into DJing, so that was really cool.
Is that where the name Detour came from, your B-boy
No,
days?
I mean, Detour came from a video or VHS tape, to date me, a long time ago. It was like 2003.
20 years ago.
Yeah, even like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
When I got the VHS tape, and it had the word Detour in there, and I liked it. And I started using that. And it was like, I guess... the crew originality stands alone. That was the crew, and it was like Cujo, Remind, Midas. There's a couple other cats in there, but yeah, they were just like different. So
this was the B-boy group.
Originality stands alone, Bay Area. So I got that, and basically was loving the video, and then started using the word Detour to sign stuff.
Yeah,
and that was like when I first started like selling artwork. On like a larger scale. That was like when eBay was coming out too. But that's where Detour comes from.
Nice.
And then my B-boy name. Actually, you know what? I think I did do Detour as like a B-boy name too. But I think I was also using Kool-Aid, DJ Kool-Aid. Yeah, because I had the Kool-Aid T-shirt. It was like another free T-shirt that I got, and it was the Kool-Aid Man. And so
you told him you were bringing a flavor.
Yeah, it was someone said Kool-Aid, and I was like, oh, shit.
Busting through walls. What?
Yeah, so I started doing DJ Kool-Aid and breakdancing as well as Detour, I believe, and Kool-Aid. So, yeah, that's like where the names come from.
Actually, you might find this interesting. The original cast of Breakin', Boogaloo Shrimp and all, they were going to do another movie. And I wrote it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're trying to raise money for it now, but I just finished writing that script like...
Oh, they want to do another one now?
Yeah.
Oh, they're old, man.
I know. So it's going to be...
That's shuffling.
I see. So Boogaloo's probably like in his late 50s because he was 16 when that movie came out.
Yeah.
But so they're going to be doing a whole bunch of flips. And then Shabba-Doo passed away last year. Yeah.
So what they're going to do? Like raise money?
They want to do like a new generation, old generation, kind of like Cobra Kai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I wrote a script where they're kind of like passing it down to the next generation. We'll see if anytime you write a movie script, it could be. There's people I know in LA who write movie scripts that never get made, and they make a full living.
Yeah,
they get paid for script to script. They'll be there for 10 years, nothing ever gets made, but they buy a house. You know? So that's
because they buy it and store it, right? They just buy it and just like hold on to it.
So there's that. And that's basically like they get the rights to it.
Yeah.
But then there's the thing of like the movie is written, but for some reason like they can't get the actor they want, or the studio heads change or whatever. But the writer still has been paid.
Okay.
Yeah. And so sometimes it just doesn't get developed.
Okay. I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, man.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Let's get back on you. Rewinding to the early days.
Yeah.
What was like the first art that
I mean, I guess it kind of started because my dad's military.
Okay.
West Point grad. So after he graduated, my family moved everywhere. So that's like where I kind of get the start of the art sort of journey, because I had to like make friends everywhere. So I drew to make friends. So I drew my friends. I drew Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is like one of the first things I ever remember drawing. And it's like I was selling that for like $1 in class. I think this was like third grade. So I was selling that.
You already understood commerce.
Exactly.
Nice.
So it was like I was moving everywhere and then making artwork for friends, and then started drawing my friends and teachers in class. So I was getting really good. So it was like more caricature. So like learning, how to do proportions and all that. And then when I moved to Germany, that's when I really got into artwork, because my homeroom class was in like the arts class.
Yeah.
And then that's when one of the homeroom teachers, who was the art teacher, gave me access to like an airbrush.
How old were you?
No, this was like sophomore year in high school.
And where in Germany?
Ramstein.
Okay.
So Ramstein, Germany. It's like the largest military base outside of the U.S. So it's like it's like an entire city.
Wow.
So yeah, they even have like a mall, I believe now. So it's like an entire city. It's Air Force Base, but my dad was Army, but we were living there from my sophomore year to graduating, and then did like a half a year at Maryland University, like online, sort of like satellite school. Not even online. It was like a satellite school that they had for a lot of the troops and the families of troops. So it was like a class I was doing for my associates. And then that's when eBay also came out too. Right. So like doing airbrushing t-shirts on eBay like helped me sort of like get the idea of, okay, this is how much a shirt costs. Let me airbrush this shirt. Let me send it out. Okay, I gotta worry about the fees, and then I have to worry about the shipping, and then the cost of the shirt, and then how much did I make afterwards, and then also got to do customer service in terms of like getting it on time. So it was like a really good lesson in terms of like a mix of art and business.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know about it. I was just like going with the flow.
I was gonna say, brother, it's really interesting because a lot of artists learn their art stuff and then have to learn their business stuff separately. But it seems like you were kind of figuring them both out at the same time.
Yeah, I was at the same time because I used to also sell candy in school.
Oh, yeah.
So like I would buy it at the local grocery store on the military base because it's cheaper on the military base sometimes to get food and like the commissary stuff because you don't pay taxes either on base. So it's kind of like I was getting candy and then selling it in class. So like Snickers and Starburst and stuff like that. So I was always like hustling in school and like class and stuff like that. So it was like I had that mentality to sort of like figure that stuff out. And then it was like a way of connecting with people. But then once it came to art, I started using that for the art stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like I wasn't really even big into like, I guess, making it a full time or like pursuing it. In terms of I want to be an artist, it was like I always wanted to be, like I was doing football.
Okay.
That was like my biggest thing, football in school, and then track as well. And then I didn't really do basketball, but it was mainly like football and some baseball too. But yeah, I was like, I wanted to go to D1 school and play, but found out quickly like I wasn't growing anymore. It was just like I wasn't getting any faster.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, this ain't working out. So I was like, you know what? That's also when I was getting into dance.
Okay.
It was like, sophomore year of high school, because I was in Granite City, Illinois, going to Granite City High School, and one of the guys, Sal, was a breakdancer.
Okay.
And he was willing to teach me a little bit.
Yeah.
So he was teaching me a little bit, and then I moved to Germany in the middle of my sophomore year. And then that's when I was in Germany. But luckily enough, Germany had like the largest breakdancing event during that time. It was called Battle of the Year. They actually made a movie about it. Chris Brown was in there.
Oh, really?
Terrible movie. Yeah, it was awful. I was like, why did they get Chris Brown for? It's like he don't even spin on the head. Like he can dance, but yeah, it's not that type of dance. But yeah, so it was like I was living in Germany when they had that that event, and then it was getting a lot of I guess what was it? I guess the whole dance culture was strong out there. Like hip hop is big out there outside of the U.S. when it comes to the graffiti, the art, but really the dancing. So that's like where for me it was kind of like I was able to connect with people I didn't even know how to communicate with verbally. But through dance, it was like we knew each other type of thing.
That's dope.
Yeah, so it was like I was able to travel around the different countries and like actually connect with people just through dance. So that's like my sort of journey when it comes to like really getting on a stage when it comes to expressing myself. So like and then not only that, there was a guy, his name was Rantain, and he was from Brooklyn, and you could tell he's from, no, he was from New York, but I don't know what borough.
Yeah.
I think it was Brooklyn it was the Bronx. I remember him yelling it, because, I don't know, New York people are just loud.
Yes.
And they always know, like to tell you what borough
They
they're
make
from.
sure you know.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that makes a difference to me. I don't.
Right.
It's like you're
Right.
all New York.
It's all New York, yeah.
it's all New York. I have no clue.
What you know about 149th Street, son?
Yeah, I was like, 140. What does that mean?
Right,
It's like,
right.
that's the South Bronx.
Right.
So yeah. So like, he was in Germany because his wife was in the military.
Okay.
But he was teaching me, my friend Jeff, my friend Jed, and my friend Jade, like breakdancing and all this stuff. Because he was like a breakdancer. Like, he was doing windmills and headspins. Like, so we would hang out with him all the time at the rec center and learn. So like, when I moved back to the States to not Granite City, but Belleville, Illinois, which is like a couple miles away from Granite City. So basically, you know Belleville, Illinois? Yeah, Belleville, Illinois. So that's where I went to got my associate's degree in community college. That was
what was your
Southwestern
degree
Illinois
in?
Community College. It was just like an associate's degree in like maybe business or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like the first 2 years.
I just wonder if you were going for art or you were just kind of...
No. So like this was this is like 2004 and 5.
Okay.
Out there. But my friend Jeff, who I was in high school with in Germany, he went into the military, and then he got stationed at Belleville, Illinois, with me.
Okay.
So he was like, we connected and linked back up and like started doing more breakdancing stuff. And we were then
Let me ask
traveling
you,
back and
during
forth.
this time while you're deep into the dance, are you doing visual art stuff too? Or
Yeah, it was like I was still airbrushing,
Okay.
like selling that on the side.
Yeah.
So like I was airbrushing on eBay, like getting like tons of SpongeBob, tons of like people's names, tons of any character, Bart Simpson you want to name it. It's like that stuff. And then I did so many Tupac and Biggie pieces, and this was also too when 50 Cent was out, and it was like Big Pun was big because I think after he passed away and everything, so doing a ton of that stuff, but also breakdancing, and then started organizing. At I think it was like 2005, I started organizing breakdancing events.
Okay.
But yeah, we were going up to Chicago to compete in Cicero and Champaign and Nashville and stuff like that. And then I moved to Colorado.
Did you have like a signature move, or you just kind of...
That was like I was like mostly, I wasn't like too much power. It was like footwork and tops. Because like these kids today, man, like they learn early.
Yeah.
And then when I was like learning, it's like the smaller you are, the easier it is to carry your body. There's some people that are just super strong. That's like they can be 6'6" and like do amazing moves. But like, yeah, a lot of them came from, had like a background when it came to, martial arts or gymnastics and stuff like that, was able to do that stuff. So I couldn't do too much of that, just a little bit, but like mostly tops.
Okay.
And
What's tops?
Tops was kind of like when you're on your feet dancing.
Okay.
And it's like, yeah, you're on your feet dancing, and then when you get down to the floor with your hands and feet, that's like the footwork. And then like when you're doing like spinning on your head and like flying through the air, that's like power moves.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was like more of the tops, up rock. Which is like the tops, and then footwork.
I had to learn some of this stuff to write that script.
Yeah.
But I was constantly, the producers are both B-boys, so I constantly had to be like, what's the name of the move for here?
Yeah.
Let's plug this in here.
Yeah.
I know more of the MC stuff than I do, like the B-boy or even DJ stuff. You know, like I just know those things kind of generally.
Yeah, but like for me, it was like the B-boy jams, wherever I went, was like the way hip hop got out there. So it wasn't even like the music per se. It was like the music was big, but the hip hop was like Souls of Mischief, Nas. But then it's like you throw in like a Nina Simone beat, you throw in a Bambudo span. So it's like all spans the gamut when it comes to the type of music that you're listening to. But that was like how a lot of the hip hop, when I was viewing it, traveling around, sort of like spread. So for me, that was like an amazing thing because it's like a huge family wherever you go to. And then, but that's like when I started organizing when I was in Belleville. And then when I moved to Colorado, 2006, that's when I went to school here to get my bachelor's at University of Colorado, Denver.
And what was that in?
That was 2006.
I mean, what was the...
Business administration, emphasis in marketing. And that was, 2006. And when I got here, I was still like heavy into breakdancing and organizing all the events and stuff like that. So yeah, and then, but also too before right before I left Belleville, Illinois, I got into stand-up comedy.
Really?
That was when Last Comic Standing was out.
Huh.
And it was, it was like...
I didn't even notice, man. You got a whole secret.
Yeah, it was Last Comic Standing was out, but I forgot the show that was on that was like, got me really into it. Because I've always been into like movies and acting and stuff like that. Because I did improv and...
Yeah, like a type 5? You would like do like a 5-minute set kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I have maybe a strong 2 minutes, and then I'm like, and then I just wander off. So like, because I did like improv a little bit in school, because like there was a club, and then one of my friends, Michael Malley. He actually moved to Chicago to try to do Second City.
Okay.
And so like we sort of got together and started doing like open mics in St. Louis. So we did like open mics down at the river and then St. Charles and a couple other places. And then moved here, and I was still into like going to school, breakdancing, organizing stuff. And then the first year was like doing a little bit of stand-up. So like the Squire Lounge.
Yeah.
And then I did the Comedy Works and improv. The Comedy Works had the New Talent Nights, or the Shining New Talents Night. So like I would get past the first round, and then the second round would be when I had finals.
Oh.
So I was just like do the first round and then had to do finals. 'Cause I was like really all about my schoolwork too. But then it's kind of like you go on stage and you do a set, and then you go to the next club. And you can't do that same set, or you kind of do the set, but like you get the same people. You can't really do it again, because sometimes people go from place to place. And this was like really heavy when Last Comic Standing and Josh Blue like won.
Right.
It was really big, and Denver's like a hot spot for comedy too. So, but it's like you got to be dedicated to that thing.
That's so interesting.
Because then I was not, and I was good at writing initially, and then I drifted off, and I just like I did not try to write or like jot down jokes I remember, or like even work on it as much as I should have. And then, you get those nights where it's kind of like no one laughs at all.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, why am I doing this?
It's such an interesting thing, because I feel like comedy's the only entertainment medium where people are basically like, make me react.
Yeah.
Because like if you're on stage rapping, either they're into it or they're not. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless you're like it's rare. Even at a battle thing, like, battle, I guess people are more engaged. But in general, if you're performing like at a club or like a bar, they're just not into it until you bring them into it.
Yeah.
But they're not like, make me be entertained.
Yeah.
Whereas comedy, people are like, I dare you to make me laugh, essentially.
Yeah. They pay to get in sometimes. They got the 2-drink minimum.
Right.
So it's kind of like, you better make me laugh. I had a hard day's work.
Yeah.
It's like, you better make something laugh.
So it's a different kind of pressure.
Yeah. I mean, so it was like, I was doing that, and then that kind of weaned off. I dropped off of like doing any of that anymore.
Yeah.
And then got into more of the organizing, doing events and starting clubs. And then, this was also too like when there was the Democratic National Convention in Denver, and it was like the hot spot of like politics and Barack Obama.
Right.
It's like that whole hype was
they
like
changed the rock bar to the Barack bar.
Yeah. So like, man, it was just like so much energy out here. It was like people were just doing everything. That's when I was doing a lot of like get out the vote, stuff like that, registering people on campus. So like organizing, like learning that stuff. I even did like a what's that thing? The cold calls. Like, who are you voting for? Like, I would never do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that was awful. I think I lost votes for some people too. It was like the weirdest thing to call people up like, during their dinner and be like, "Who are you voting for, sir?"
Right.
So that led into working on campus, because some of the people in student life were like, "Oh, you're doing a ton of stuff. You just want to have a job here?" So I was like, yeah. So then it was like I was in student life working for a good 3.5, 4 years over there, which was really good because I got to use all the school resources and then learn about how like a school works. And then like if I want to bring people on campus in terms of just like for student activities, I learned how to like make a budget, to figure out contracts with some of the people, because they would give me a budget to like bring people on campus. So did that was like my first official job. It was like I get the what's that? FICA. Coming out the check and all that stuff. So it's kind of like, oh, what's happening there? So yeah, so there's a lot of that happening. But yeah, so that's kind of like what I did on campus, and then graduated with my bachelor's. Took a year just to like, or it took about half a year, just to work on campus, and got enough money saved up for my MBA. So, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so I did an MBA. Okay. Emphasis in marketing, and then basically same school. So like I worked more on campus as well, and then kind of dropped off on the organizing breakdancing events and stuff like that, and just focused on, okay, what's the next sort of part of my life is going to look like.
So okay, it's interesting. I just want to go back. So we were talking about like you started out drawing caricatures of people because you had to meet people. You were selling candy. Then you started selling the drawings. So you go from that point to the dancing stuff, but you're organizing, you're traveling with it. Yeah. You're getting the business degrees. Yeah. So there's this, and then you worked in a business office at the college. You started doing contracts and stuff like that, right?
Well, it was like the student life office, but it was kind of like more or what was it called? Like extracurricular activities. Okay. So like anything outside of the classroom. Yeah. We kind of like we're organizing.
Okay, so like, and you were dealing with contracts there, and and then you went to get the MBA for marketing. So there's this whole path of like art is in your life. Yeah, but you're learning all the business stuff in a strong way. Yeah. So I'm really interested about like the point for you where the art became like visual art became the main business.
I mean, it was always like I guess equal parts to everything because during that time I was also doing canvas work. I moved from T-shirts to canvas. Okay. Doing canvases that I made myself because then I could glue like broken vinyl records to the canvas because I was DJing, so I had a bunch of old vinyl that I was like collecting. And then at the Wax Tracks, the record store, they would have a pile. They still have a pile that they keep where people donate records that they, someone passed away and like they clean out the closet and they would just donate the records, but it's scratched, they can't sell it, so it ends up in a pile and it's like slated to be thrown into the garbage, like every other week type of thing. So I started learning about that, and so I would grab those records and use that in my artwork. And then I guess a lot of people started recognizing my work, moving from airbrush and then into, I guess it would be acrylics. No, it was like airbrushing, and then I moved into adding sound to my work because Musa Bailey had the Shoe Shine event where it's kind of like the sneakerheads would like bring their shoes and showcase it type of thing. Yeah. But he would have artists come in and he would bring backboards. He would give you the backboards of like this like basketball backboards. Okay. And basically you would just paint that and put that on display for like the art part of the show. So I didn't want to like do what everyone else did. So I did the broken records on my backboard, but I also added in a speaker to mine, which was like different. Yeah. And it was like the very simple circuitry of like wiring up a speaker that I took out of an old boombox, and then the left-right, I would just cut the auxiliary cord and then connect those to the speakers, and then you could
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at tonight's general comment session. Tonight's session is being interpreted into Spanish. Sam or Alejandro, would you please introduce yourself and let our viewers know how to enable translation on their devices?
Of course. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Alejandro Arrieta. I am one of 2 interpreters today working with my colleague Sam. Before I provide instructions in Spanish, I would like to offer a friendly reminder to please speak at a comfortable pace, especially when reading off bill numbers and titles. Thank you very much. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Alejandro Arrieta, seré su intérprete de español el día de hoy junto con mi colega Sam. Si usted prefiere participar
in Colorado. And I just got...
It's perfect, man. I mean, for the airport and everything. And as you mentioned, it's going to be there decades. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, learning about that, like, trying to get buy-in from people. So, like, I just got word from the Nuggets that they're, wanting to donate a Jokic jersey to it. So, like, that was really cool. And then I got the Broncos and working on the Rockies to donate as well. So... getting all these different little items from everywhere around Colorado. So people are able to still donate too. But like, even with that sculpture, it's like learning about how do I sort of build it to where it's safe? How do I work with a fabricator who can build the armature so all this stuff can hang on it? What type of insurance do I need? The fire retardant coating I have to have on it. So it doesn't burn if it does catch on fire. So it's like learning all that stuff is totally new. But it's like a new challenge that I like. And it's different than what everyone else is doing.
So interesting, man.
Yeah, so it's kind of like...
Congratulations. That's really dope.
Thank you, man. So it's like I got away from sometimes, or a lot of the mural stuff because there's just like so many people in it now.
Right.
So it's like harder and harder to have as much fun because it went from being, I guess, like a gathering spot on the wall where you can just paint, turned it into, I guess more monetary sort of lens when it comes to public art and the murals. And I was like, I want to try to do something else. And,
well, I mean, if there's anything from this story, like you sharing your stuff, is that you always grow and expand as a creative.
Yeah.
Which it's really dope to hear it all and to see it continue. It's about time for us to wrap up. So I want to ask 2 questions.
Yeah.
One of them is, what's inspiring you these days creatively? Music, television, movies, whatever.
I'd say like new technology, man.
Yeah.
Like the AI stuff got me interested, but like more so just like learning engineering, learning the tech stuff is like, when I got my first 3D printer, and learn like how to do design work in a CAD program and like actually print it out and have it like in my hand.
Yeah.
I was like, now I'm dangerous. Now I can actually do a ton of stuff. So that was really inspiring. And like now it's kind of like if I have an idea or I need to sort of I need an item or I need something for my studio, it's like I'll figure out how to design it on this CAD program and 3D print it, and in a couple hours I can have like a working prototype or even like a finished piece that I can use. So like that inspires me, being able to actually just like create my ideas from start to finish and not have to worry about buying something from Amazon or relying on anyone else.
That's so interesting. That's been happening to me with the comic stuff because earlier on it was me writing and working with other artists who were drawing.
Yeah.
But for the Denver Art Museum stuff and for Denver Noir, which was an anthology book, like so many artists have flaked out on me.
Yeah.
That I just drew those.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so now it's getting to like I'm still working heavily with other artists.
Yeah.
But now I can do it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And that brings me a lot more sort of satisfaction and security.
Yeah, I mean, like even with like your work with comics and just like storytelling, like the story is like the biggest part of anything. You can have good visuals, you can have a lot of that, but it's like the story is what grabs people and keeps people interested. So like if you don't have a good story, if like you just don't want to bore people.
And that's real.
Yeah, you don't want to bore people because if I go to a movie and I'm like, I'm sorry, Michael Bay, but like, his Transformer movies, like I can go there and like the graphics are great, but like I almost fall asleep.
Detours out here saying names. Michael Bay took out Rev Run. Howard Dean was going.
Yeah, it's like if you have a story though that's really interesting, like people will always like get more into that. For example, I think I said earlier, like South Park. Right?
Yeah.
Like South Park, very simple graphics in terms of just like the aesthetics and like the drawing.
Yeah.
It's like cut out of like craft paper. I think they first started doing a greeting card video, but they cut it out and like did stop motion.
Right.
But it's like very simple, but it's like the story behind it.
Right.
And you get in love with these characters and they build personality. So like with you, it's like you don't really need, I guess the best artist is like, as long as the story is really good, people will really buy into it. It's like, you just can't bore people. And that's the same thing with art too.
Yeah.
It's like the aesthetics of a piece can be really great, but it's like, if it's just, there's no sort of substance to it.
Where's the emotional engagement?
Yeah, that's like one of the things with like AI art. It's like there's really like, it's empty in a way. You got to have something behind it.
Yeah.
And that's always like the key for anything performance-wise. Comedians, it's like, there's got to be substance behind the joke, rooted in reality, rooted in something that's like people can connect with. And it can't just be a ha-ha joke.
Right.
Then you're just like, yeah.
It's interesting, man. It's so like, you know, you and I have talked a couple times before, but I definitely didn't know all of this stuff that you've done, this journey. Okay, so then the last thing is, where can people follow you online? Where can they keep up with your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm mostly active on Instagram.
Yeah.
At Detour303, and then my website is iamdetour.com. But those two places are the most active, and then I'm also on Facebook. My fan page is I Am Detour.
Okay.
But that's like for people over now, like 40.
Right. Then you do the Art Tip Tuesdays on IG, right?
Yeah.
And then that's every Tuesday you give an art tip.
Every Tuesday, art tips.
And then you did that book.
Yep. Be the Artist. Yeah. So I did that as well. So you can get that on my website, purchase a book. And then, if you come to my Instagram every Tuesday, you'll see a whole new art tip. So I've been doing that for the past almost 6.5, 7 years straight.
Nice.
Never missed a Tuesday, not even for holidays or anything. So like, there's one every. So that's how people can actually see, you know, what I was doing.
They can follow the growth.
Yeah, follow the growth, because every Tuesday you see that thing, that graphic or something. It's like, oh, that's a week in between. So that's a really cool sort of thing that I've been doing consistently.
All right. Thomas Detour Evans, thanks for being with us, man. Thank
you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm R. Allen Brooks.
I'm Dele Johnson, and I'm editor-producer of How Art is Born, and Allen is the host.
Yeah, so you see more of me, but Dele makes all the cool stuff happen behind the scenes, and in addition to getting cool guests and stuff like that. So this episode we're doing, I talked to Greg Deal, Greg with 3 G's.
3 G's.
Yeah.
My middle name is Greg.
I didn't know
but it's only with 2 G's.
3 G's are a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot.
So, there was a lot that Greg and I had in common, being both Gen X, talking about being isolated. We both found a lot of comfort in comics. His art took a vastly different route than mine, but we also found a lot of comfort in hip-hop, and then him punk as well. Mm-hmm. And you'll see a lot of that stuff kind of manifest in his art. But I think it was really cool to talk about, like, just what it meant for him to be a native artist and how all these different influences kind of distilled into his art practice these days.
Yeah, and he shared a lot about his journey working in sign making, working in Native American nonprofit.
Welcome to your Denver City Council. Please stand by. Full coverage of your Denver City Council begins now.
Council will now reconvene from our earlier session. There is no unfinished business, but there are 2 proclamations being read this evening. Councilmember Watson, will you please read Proclamation 250071?
Yes, I may. Council President, Proclamation number 250071, congratulating the Denver St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee on the occasion of the 63rd anniversary of the annual parade on March 15th, 2025. Whereas Denver has one of the largest cultural parades in the United States and the largest St. Patrick's Day parade west of the Mississippi. And whereas the 2025 theme is centered around Mile High Shamrocks and Shenanigans, that's a good name, and honors the 63rd anniversary of the parade. And whereas the Denver St. Patrick's Day Parade exemplifies a peaceful celebration along with a community of diverse citizens who gather together with a glance at the Celtic past and a look to the future, while enjoying Irish cultural fanfare, pipe and drum bands, Irish step dancing, and honoring all divisions of our military to the delight of over 200,000 spectators. And whereas we congratulate and thank all volunteers of the Denver St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, including those who have passed on but are still remembered, for their endless hours and never-ending commitment, which makes this celebration possible. And whereas we hope the Colorado sun and a mile-high air lifts the spirits of all who march or attend the 63rd Annual Parade, Saturday, March 15th, 2025. And we hope for a warm wind at our backs as we celebrate the Irish culture in the great state of Colorado. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Denver City Council, Section 1, that the Denver City Council hereby congratulates the Denver St. Patrick's Day Committee, a volunteer organization, on a well-organized, peaceful, and spirited gathering at the 63rd annual event. And Section 2, that the clerk and recorder of the City and County of Denver shall affix the seal of the City and County of Denver to this proclamation, and that a copy be transmitted to Denver St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee President Dave Anderson.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Your motion to adopt?
I move that Proclamation 250071 be adopted.
It has been moved and seconded. Comments by members of council. Councilmember Watson?
Thank you, Madam President. It is always my honor each year to welcome the St. Patrick's Day Parade to Define District 9. It's one of the largest parades, the largest events in District 9, celebrating the culture and the history of Irish people and those of us who become Irish for just one day. It is a celebration that brings folks together during a time when there are so many things that are pulling us and our communities apart. I want to encourage Denverites to come on down and join us in Define District 9 on March 15th to celebrate this, the 63rd anniversary of the annual parade.
Thank you. Councilmember Flynn.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm wondering if we could figure out maybe for next year's proclamation, this is the largest St. Patrick's Day parade west of the Mississippi, but I'm wondering if it might be the third or fourth largest parade west of the Shannon. Could we have someone figure that out? I expect an answer next year. I've been blessed to visit Ireland 3 times, once with my father and my brothers, once with my children, and lastly with my wife. And so I've been all around the Emerald Isle, and I visited the town where my Flynn ancestors come from. I haven't visited the Lynches or the Mahonies or the others that have come down into the Flynn line. In the little town of Loughrea in County Galway, I got to visit the Abbey graveyard and visit the grave of one of my great-great-great-grandfathers. And one of his, would it be his son, who emigrated to New Jersey in the 1860s to find a better life. And when you're in Ireland, you might wonder, why would people leave this beautiful place? They left for a lot of the reasons that people from so many other nations try to come to the United States. because of the promise of the Golden Door, because of the promise of freedom and liberty, and for the promise of prosperity and a future for their families. That's why they came in the 1800s. That's why people continue to try to come here. And I think it's just good to remember that. I was tempted to tell an Irish joke from Hal Roach, but I won't do that. I'll refrain. But I do want to recognize, if I could, Jordan Ruge, the Queen Colleen, and her father Steve, who was my brother's neighbor. My brother refused to come down because he was afraid I would recognize him also. But welcome, Steve and Jordan. And Madam President, I think that the luck of the Irish should be with the parade on that Saturday, and good luck to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Flynn. I was able to go to Ireland last year on an inaugural flight from Denver to Ireland. Now we have an inaugural flight. And I was welcomed, and it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot of the history of Ireland, and I learned a lot of the plight of the people of Ireland. And I have a profound respect for you all now that I've gone there, and the history, and for some reason they all knew Denver. Like everywhere I'd go, they'd be like, oh, you're from Denver, Colorado. And they actually even knew that we had a huge St. Patrick's Day parade. So I did not expect that when I was there, and so it was really nice to have, I felt like it was really well received. So I wish you all well on the 16th, and I hope that the Denver weather cooperates, and even in it hasn't, we've persevered. So thank you all. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Cashman.
Aye.
Ovidras. Flynn.
Tall. That is yes in Gaelic.
Gilmore.
Aye.
Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Hines.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Parity.
Aye.
Romero Campbell.
Ta.
Sawyer.
Aye.
Torres.
Ta.
Watson.
Da.
Madam President.
Aye. Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
13 ayes.
13 ayes. Proclamation 0071 has been adopted. Councilmember Watson, we have time for the proclamation acceptance. Who would you like to call up?
I'd like to ask Dave Anderson, the committee president for Denver St. Patrick's Day Parade, to come forward.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate this proclamation, and we always love coming down here to see all of you. This is a great experience. We have worked with many people throughout the city, Denver Fire, Denver Police, Department of Transportation, special events, incredible people, even the liquor license people. Everybody is great. Parking management. And it's truly a thrill to go through there and to work with all of them and to have them smile and help us with what we're doing. And we always have a coordination meeting with them all and talk about it. And the planning and the thought is just incredible from everybody in the city. And we really appreciate that. We are an all-volunteer organization, as noted, and we survive completely on donations and fees from the parade entries. But we do not deny anybody acceptance into the parade. All are welcome to come. And it is truly a day for everybody to be Irish. I know Watson and Anderson, we're both very Irish names. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to...
Yeah, come on up.
Hi. My name is Lisa Switzer. I wish it was O Switzer, but it's not. Believe it or not, my family is from Ireland and emigrated from the Palatine region of Europe to Ireland in the 1700s. And to Mr. Flynn's point, during the Great Famine, 1 million people died and 1 million people emigrated. And the one thing about the Irish government that I appreciate very much is that they care about where their children ended up. So when we talk about the Irish, I talk about a story of immigration. I'm the president of Irish Network Colorado. That's my affair that I have at night. That's my full-time night job. And my day job, I'm the CEO of a cancer research organization. And it might not seem like there's a nexus there, but there is. There is actually a type of melanoma that afflicts Celtic people. It's called the Fitzpatrick melanoma. So I'm going to tell everybody, wear your sunscreen. That's my job. Wear your sunscreen, fair-haired people. The types of people it hits are red-haired people with green or blue eyes, or blonde people with blue or green eyes. And I never thought those two worlds would come together. But I think the thing that I wanted to say tonight is the state of Colorado reports that there are 667,000 plus people in the state who consider themselves Irish, either Irish born or of Irish descent. So there's no surprise that we have the biggest parade west of the Mississippi. The other thing I'm going to say is that you can't talk about the Irish people without talking about immigration. As president of Irish Network Colorado, we have built a memorial up in Leadville, which is, if you haven't been, you have to go, 2 miles high. And it is a memorial about the Irish immigrants who, like my family, ended up coming through central Pennsylvania. Everybody thinks everybody came through Ellis Island, but lots of people came through Philadelphia, came into Jersey. My family, blue collar, my parents didn't go to college. I was very lucky to have them support me and love me and say, go girl, and be educated in the way that I am. And so I want to give back. In Leadville, we have a memorial that's a minor on a big plinth. It's in a cemetery where they just dumped the poor people who couldn't afford to have a grave. It's the pauper section of the cemetery, or the Catholic-free section. And literally, there are 2 or 3 bodies in the same grave who were not related because they had nowhere to go and because they were Catholic. And so we decided to clean that part of the cemetery up, to resurrect this amazing thing and bring these people's stories to life. So there's walls of names of the people we know who are buried there from parish records. But here's what we found out. It wasn't men who were buried there in the majority. It was women and children. And of the children, 10% were stillborn. I have told this story so many times that I don't think I ever get through it without being moved. We said, then the story's not done. We can't just have a minor up there. So we are raising money to have a mother and child sit on the plinth so that we can finish that story, because the story is about what immigration does to the family system. And we're continuing to see that. And I'm very proud to say that when we did that memorial, we brought all kinds of people, including people from the Ute Nation who had been driven out of that land and put onto a reservation down south. We really wanted to recognize the inclusivity of that space and the sacredness of that space. So to close, while everybody might feel like they're Irish on St. Patrick's Day, there really are people in this state who can claim that heritage. My family comes from Rathkeil, which is in County Limerick, kind of in the southeast part of Ireland. Settled there. There's actually a cemetery full of Switzers. There's a museum with our name on it. So when I saw that, I wept. And I just cannot say how proud I am to be of this descent. Thank you all for what you do. I can't believe you're here at 6 o'clock at night. I didn't realize you had hours like this, but I appreciate all of your efforts. The St. Patrick's Day Parade made me the Grand Marshal, and I couldn't be more honored. So thank you all very much for what you've done and to the committee.
Thank you. Councilmember, sorry, I'm reading my script and it's not accurate, so I'm going to have to ad-lib this. Councilmember Torres, will you please read Council Proclamation 250266?
Thank you, Madam President. Proclamation number 25-0266, celebrating Aztec New Year 2025. Whereas the ancient calendar systems of pre-Columbian America were established with the participation of thousands of peoples and nations across thousands of miles in this hemisphere and over thousands of years. And whereas, based on the careful observation and patient study, First Nations adapted the cyclical revolution of the earth into their model of coexistence and governance. And whereas Azteca Mexica New Year's Day marks the beginning of the new year based on the Aztec calendar, celebrating an ancient tradition of the Azteca Mexica culture, symbolizing the cyclical nature of time and the renewal of cosmic energy. And whereas Azteca Mexica New Year's Day is celebrated by Native American and Native Mexican communities, and a multitude of festivities take place throughout the Azteca Mexican New Year that provide an opportunity for all to experience Indigenous knowledge and traditions. And whereas the Olmec, Toltec, Mayan, and Aztec calendar systems are recognized by modern science to be the most precise systems. And whereas March 12th is celebrated across the continent as Mexica New Year, based on the information that is substantiated by both European and Mexican calendars due to the surrender of Tenochtitlan on August 13th, 1521. And whereas the Chicano community of Denver, Colorado has been hosting Aztec New Year celebrations for more than 2 decades, bringing together people from all over the city to participate and preserve in the rich heritage of the Aztec civilization. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Denver City Council, Section 1, that the Denver City Council celebrates March 12th as Aztec Mexica New Year, and Section 2, that the Clerk and Recorder of the City and County of Denver shall affix the seal of the City and County of Denver to this proclamation, and that a copy be transmitted to Denver-based Danzante groups.
Thank you, Councilman Torres. Your motion to adopt?
I move that Proclamation 25-0266 be adopted.
It has been moved and seconded. There are many co-sponsors on this proclamation. Myself, Council Pro Tem Romero Campbell, Councilwoman Gonzalez Gutierrez, Councilwoman Alvidrez, Councilwoman and Councilwoman Gilmore. Councilwoman Torres, I'll start with you. By any comments?
100%. Thank you so much. Danzantes have been part of my cultural appreciation and existence since I was a kid. My mom in college actually danced with Grupo Tlaloc when she was at the Community College of Denver, and that was some of the first experiences that I saw the wide variety of cultural appreciation and historic nods in my community. As I came onto council, it was also one of the reasons why I proposed and Councilwoman Gilmore approved adding a land acknowledgement to our every week council meeting to kick us off, because it is how we start every ceremony and every cultural event when we do that in community on the north side, the west side, the east side, you name it. It is such a part of who we are, to honor our ancestors, and to honor the land that we're on. And so I really appreciate how much you've influenced who I am and how much you've given me to appreciate in our Denver community by keeping such an important tradition alive. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next up, we have Pro Tem Romero Campbell.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the co-sponsors and to you, Council Member Torres, for bringing this forward. I really think that it's just a proud part of our heritage, and regardless of where we sit and where we are, it's who we are reflected as. And so I just appreciate that there is a group that keeps that tradition moving forward, that we can stand and be an acknowledgement of. It also makes me think there's I'll do a plug, there's a Su Teatro performance that's coming up this March, and I think it's on from the 13th through the 30th. I am gonna I'm gonna probably mispronounce the name. Zayana? Is that it? Is that correct? Zayana, and it is a love story and a new play that was brought forward and written by Mika. And I think that is just, again, a testament to the culture continuing to live on and people carrying those stories forward. And with Popocatépetl, that was the name of my cat. We went to Mexico and I loved the name. And so my favorite cat of all time was Popocatépetl. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Alvidrez.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilwoman Torres, for bringing this forward. Such a beautiful thing to recognize. It makes me really proud. And as I was preparing today, I realized that it's actually the 500th anniversary of the death of Cuauhtemoc, while it was on February 28th. So what a meaningful day for a wonderful leader. And I think fun fact is that my father wanted to name his first child Cuauhtemoc, and I'm glad my mom convinced him for Flor instead. But recognizing the Aztec New Year's, we celebrate not only a new cycle, but the resilience and wisdom of indigenous traditions that continue to thrive today. I think that's something we're taught in school. This is something ancient from a long time ago, but that no longer exists. And that's what the work that you all do. You say we still exist, the story still continues, and we are not defeated. I was in Mexico City last month, and one of the paintings that really stuck out to me was one where they showed Cuauhtemoc's feet and the pouring of the oil, and the conquistadores with a dog with gold in his eyes looking at him. And just, I think the biggest realization I took from that was the gold that they've always looked for is us. The gold that they look for is the danza. The gold that they look for is what you all are carrying into our future for our future generations. And I thank you for that. And just want you to know that you make so many of us so proud of something that takes a lot of inner work and healing to get to the point where you're proud of, because we are taught that the lighter the skin, the better, the more Spanish you speak, the better, the more English you speak, the best. And so thank you for taking us back to our roots and making us all proud of who we are. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you, Council President. I think my colleagues have said it perfectly that, we're still here. And it's not just a thing of the past. It's our present, it's our future. We have a very large Chicano, Mexica community here in Denver. And I think of, like Councilwoman Torres said, my mom learned to dance danza at the Crusade for Justice as a young girl. And she actually ended up becoming one of the drummers. And so she said that she had like really strong arms from having to do the drumming for, sometimes you guys will go for hours, right? But, I just growing up, and anytime I hear the drums, like I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my soul, and it always just reminds me of who I am and where I come from. Many of us identify as Chicano or Chicana to honor our Mexican and indigenous roots. We recognize and look back, and we recognize our role here in this world. And that helps us connect with our ancestors by recreating these traditions and keeping them alive. Recognizing and celebrating the Aztec New Year is a meaningful way for us to honor our Indigenous heritage, strengthen our cultural awareness, and uplift the voices of Native and Indigenous peoples in our city. And so I'm so glad to be able to join this proclamation with my colleagues tonight. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilmore.
Thank you, Council President. I'm honored to co-sponsor this proclamation and always thank Councilwoman Torres for her leadership. This is so important where we're at in this moment in time and how we always call on our ancestors, but at this moment in time in history, it seems like there's more of us calling on our ancestors. There's more of us talking about how colonialism shaped the United States and how when we say we didn't cross the border, they crossed us. And when we look at the history, especially when you look at the political maps, Colorado and New Mexico are unique when you look at it compared to the rest of the nation. And I don't think that is by accident, because it's so important for us to keep our ancestors near, but then also recognize that whatever we're doing today, our children are watching us, our younger folks are watching us, and how we show up in these spaces to agree or disagree, we're teaching them that. And I want you to please know that we've been watching you, and we've been paying attention to you and how you show up. And in these tough times, that gives me great strength to know that I don't need to be as afraid as I might be, because my ancestors and others are here and they've went through so much more that we pull strength from that. And so it's important that we mark these times and talk about it, and that we're going back to the old ways are probably some of the only ways that we're going to help heal our planet. We're going to help make sure that we have enough food for everybody. And so Councilwoman Torres and I were just talking about that during the recess of when are we going to, as a society, really recognize that more holistically. And I like to think that Denver and Colorado and New Mexico we're poised to do that. And so I just appreciate you and all your work and the continuing work that we're doing in the city to also create those healing spaces. And so it is an honor to co-sponsor this and be part of it. And it's even more of an honor to recognize you and hear your comments tonight. And so thank you very, very much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. As I've thought about what to say, I've thought about the dances that have happened and the prayers that have happened at La Raza Park, and the steadfast leadership of making sure that me growing up as a young girl watching the dancing at La Raza Park and knowing that my grandpa was Native American and Navajo, and not ever understanding why we had Columbus Park on Navajo Street on 38th. And we would not have been able to change that name of the park had it not been for the dances and the prayers that happened there. And when I think about the naming of the park, I'll never forget, Carlos, you standing there and you saying, look up into the sky, and reminding me that the dragonflies were here. And you told me that the women pulled in the dragonflies, and that we were the ones who were able to, and that our ancestors were on those wings of those dragonflies. And I'll never forget that. It was the highlight of my career, of being there, standing there with you and my fellow colleagues and all of our community, forever saying that La Raza Park will be there, and then working on the nomination for the historic district to make sure that the Kiosko would never be changed. And when I have a hard time, I think of the beating of the drum, and I think about my heartbeat. And I think about how that's the center of the earth. And I need to sometimes just close my eyes. And when I feel far away and disconnected from the spiritual world and this reality of being in the political world, I have to just think about my heartbeat, and then I can think about your guys' drums. So thank you all for all of the work that you've done and for community. Thank you for standing up when other people would not stand up. And to Councilwoman Gilmore's point, we need this more now than ever. We need to all unite together under the beat of the drum and think about a new year and what it can bring, and the resilience it can bring, and the prosperity that we can all walk on this sacred path together. So I cannot thank you all enough for being in the chamber with us tonight and bringing our ancestors here with us. Madam President and Madam Secretary, roll call.
Cashman?
Aye.
Vidras?
Aye.
Flynn?
Aye.
Gilmore?
Aye.
Gonzalez Gutierrez?
Aye.
Hines?
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Parody?
Aye.
Romero Campbell?
Aye.
Sawyer?
Aye.
Torres?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Madam President?
Aye. Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
13 ayes.
13 ayes. Proclamation 25-022-0266 has been adopted. Councilmember Torres, who would you like to invite up to accept the proclamation?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to invite up Danny Strange, Carlos Castaneda, and Tomas Lopez to join us up at the mic to accept.
Well, I guess I was chosen to speak first. Madam President and the rest of the council people in this house here, I want to say thank you very much for recognizing this special day, this special moment. It's an ancient, one of the oldest ceremonies that have been going on. And it makes a lot of sense why it happens, because on March 12th is, according to the Aztec calendar, the beginning of the new year. And if we look at nature itself, the new year is when everything starts to blossom, life starts to happen. So that's the beginning of life there. So the celebration is for the new life, and the celebration is also for the agriculture, which we will hopefully, all of us will soon be planting our own vegetables and fruits and flowers and what have you there. So I was invited here by Danny here to be a part of this historic moment here with this banner here with my compadre Raul Chavez, who passed away, who we danced together for a long time. So for him to be here in spirit, because this is what we've been doing, trying to keep this alive. We've been doing this for a long time. We traveled together. So I'm very honored to be a part of this here. The danza did come out of the Crusade for Justice. That's when the seed was planted here. So we've been doing this for over 40 years now. So 40 years we've been trying to keep these traditions alive. You mentioned La Raza Park, Xupantla, the first day of summer, very important time for us. That's our harvest season. We remember our elders, also celebrated at La Raza Park, Dia de los Muertos. All of our spirit people, the ones that are responsible for keeping these ways alive. And we also now, just recently, are going to celebrate here in the Denver area, Mexica New Year. We're going to have a celebration again bring all these grupos that have established some kind of gathering here in the Denver area. When I first started this dance, we were the only ones here in this group, in this community, and now there are several. There are probably about 6, not to mention a group in Pueblo and a group in Greeley as well, and another one in Boulder. So this danza has flourished. This danza has flourished. When I first started, we were the furthest from Mexico, that furthest north in Mexico that danced. And now we have danzantes in Canada. We have danzantes in Europe. We have danzantes all over Mexico. We have danzantes all over the United States. So I'm very honored to be a part of this and say thank you very much. And I'll give my colleagues an opportunity to be able to say a few words as well. And we would like to end it with a prayer. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. I want to make my brief. I think to me the most important, and I've been studying the calendar systems for all the time. At 30 years, I've been danza, and what I really when I brought the idea and the work that having this proclamation, I really feel honored that you guys would have the timing seems to be right. The Irish. We're here too. I'm Irish and Mexican, so they call me the leprechaun. And we have a lot of connection with the Irish culture and the native cultures. That's great. Go down to Ireland, they got the feathers up there. Our gente, when they help them and they help us out, and we've always been strong together. Stronger together. And I really want to offer a prayer for the people outside, and I appreciate that the city allows the mutual Mondays, AIDS. I come try to help out with them. But I see that Chicano community as a glue. That the Sundance was really in the Lakota was really what brought a lot of our resurgence of our spirit, and then the danza in Mexico was kind of coming up, and that was why I invited my tío Tomas, because he brought that Sundance way, and then Carlos bringing that Aztec dance away, because they're not separate. It's one Eagle nation, and this whole continent of North America is one Eagle nation. So that's all I wanted to say. Dios.
I want to thank Almighty Creator here at this time. And I want to thank every one of you of the Denver City Council, City of Denver. Myself, I was born in 1947, so I lived through a lot of time here in the city when I would never have ever in my whole life of mind imagined that this would happen here. That the City Council of Denver, Colorado would recognize this. It's not a calendar. It's a calculation of all of the movement of life. From the Mother Earth, the sun, the moon, beyond to the furthest bodies that the immense power and movement of this creation. And everything calculates every 52 years it comes back on balance. So to me, my heart, you make me very proud when I listen to you. I was going to say something, tell you about the history, but you schooled me. I'm very happy about that. I spent 30 years teaching Denver public schools. And I always wanted my kids to know something. We descend from the original inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere. But we're made to feel like we don't belong here. But I see this change coming about. There's a little hitch in the road right now. But I think what I see, the hearts and minds of the general population of people, like even the woman that spoke here, the Irish woman. Why is it that could be my mom talking, or that could be my grandma talking? The only thing is we say we're not immigrants, we're migrants. We've been migrating across the four corners of this turtle island for thousands of years. Thousands of years. We've been going back and forth, north, south, east, west, sharing knowledge, sharing seeds, corn. All of that's been going on here. And so I'm very, very proud and happy at this time. Tlazocamat, Tlazocamat, Tlazocamatli, hey, yo, one, hey, yo. Tlazocamat, Tlazocamatli, omete yoriyana, hey, no way. Hey, yo, one, hey, yo. Tlazocamat, Tlazocamatli, omete yoriyana, hey, no way. Tlazocamat, Tlazocamat, hey, yo, one, hey, yo. Tlazocamat, Tlazocamat, omete yoriyana, hey, no way. Hey, yo, one, hey, yo.
Tlasokamati, Ometeo, Leana, Releo, Tlasokamat, Tlasokamati, Eleo, Aneo, Tlasokamati, Ometeo, Leana, Releo, hey, 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 oh, hey, hey, oh, Tlasokamati, Ometeo, Leana, hey, hey, oh, hey, Tlasokamati, hey, 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 oh, hey, hey, oh, Tlasokamati, Ometeo, Leana, hey, hey, oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, hey, oh, Tlasokamati, Ometeo, Leana, hey, hey, oh, hey. Tlasokamati, that's
Thank
a
you.
song of thanks to each and every one of you from our Creator for all this beauty that we live in here. Very thankful for that.
Aho. Ometeo. Thank you.
All right. While they go out and take a picture, I'm taking over, so no. Who knows what's going to happen now? Just kidding. All right, we have one public hearing tonight. As a reminder, council members need to turn on their video during the vote. For those participating in person, when called upon, please come to the podium. On the presentation monitor on the wall, you will see your time counting down. For those participating virtually, when called upon, please wait until our meeting host promotes you to speaker. When you are promoted, please accept the promotion, turn on your camera, if you have one, and your microphone. All speakers should begin their remarks by telling the council their names and cities of residence, and if they feel comfortable doing so, their home addresses. If you have signed up to answer questions only, state your name and note that you're available for questions of council. Speakers will have 3 minutes. There's no yielding of time. If translation is needed, you will be given an additional 3 minutes for your comments to be interpreted. Speakers must stay on the topic of the hearing and must direct their comments to council as a whole. Please refrain from profane or obscene speech and refrain from individual or personal attacks. Councilmember Lewis, will you please put Council Bill 25-0132 on the floor for final passage?
I move that Council Bill 25-0132.
It has been moved and seconded. I do not have a gavel, so I'm using my hand. The required public hearing for Council Bill 25-0132 is open. 0132 is a bill for an ordinance concerning the licensing and regulation of business activities regarding certain natural medicine healing centers and the regulation of natural medicine. May we please have the staff report?
Good evening, members of City Council. My name is Abby Soyson. I'm the Senior Policy Analyst for the Department of Excise and Licenses. Here to present a proposal to repeal Initiated Ordinance 301 as part of a larger bill concerning the licensing and regulation of natural medicine healing centers and the regulation of natural medicine in the City of Denver. So first I'll go over some legislative and rulemaking history. Beginning in 2019, Denver voters approved Initiated Ordinance 301, also known as the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Initiative, which deprioritized criminal enforcement of the personal use and personal possession of psilocybin mushrooms by those 21 and older. Then in 2021, the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Policy Review Panel presented its 2021 comprehensive report to Denver City Council. That report included recommendations for first responder training, public education, data collection, and law enforcement priorities. In 2022, Colorado voters approved Proposition 122, also known as Access to Natural Psychedelic Substances, and that proposition established a regulated natural medicine program and allowed for the personal use, possession, and cultivation of natural medicine statewide. As a note, that term natural medicine includes psilocybin mushrooms and also includes psilocin, also derived from mushrooms, as well as dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, and ibogaine and mescaline. In 2023, the Colorado legislature passed and the governor signed Senate Bill 23290. That bill amended the regulatory framework for natural medicine that was laid out in Proposition 122. And in 2024, the Colorado Department of Revenue and the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies engaged in extensive rulemaking processes, adopted rules, and began accepting applications for natural medicine facilitators and facilities at the end of last year. So that brings us to 2025, when the Department of Revenue will begin issuing licenses for cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities, as well as natural medicine healing centers. The Department of Regulatory Agencies will also begin issuing licenses for facilitators who are authorized to supervise natural medicine use sessions beginning in 2025. And then that brings us here today, where Denver City Council is considering an ordinance to license natural medicine healing centers and regulate natural medicine in Denver. So the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Initiative, or Initiated Ordinance 301, was passed by Denver voters on May 7th, 2019. It passed with a hair over 50% of the vote, and it made Denver the first city in the United States to decriminalize hallucinogenic mushrooms. So the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Initiative, for reference, lives in Chapter 28, Article 10 of the Denver Revised Municipal Code. It has 5 main sections. The first section declares the purpose and intent of the article, which is twofold. One, it deprioritizes the imposition of criminal penalties on persons 21 and older for the personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms. And 2, it prohibits the city from spending resources on imposing criminal penalties on persons 21 or older for personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms. The ordinance defines 3 key terms: adult, psilocybin mushrooms, and personal possession. And then it declares that the enforcement of any laws imposing criminal penalties for personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms is the lowest law enforcement priority in the city of Denver. The next section prohibits the city from using any city funds or resources to assist in the enforcement of laws imposing criminal penalties for personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms by adults. And finally, the ordinance created the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Policy Review Panel. The mayor was required to appoint 11 members of the panel, and the panel was required to meet regularly and then submit a comprehensive report to Denver City Council in 2021 with its findings about the impact of the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Initiative on Denver and their recommendations moving forward. So why repeal the initiative? Approved by Colorado voters in 2022, that Proposition 122 essentially makes the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Initiative obsolete. By repealing the initiative, we can prevent conflicts and confusion with state law and allow the city to fully implement today's natural medicine regulatory framework, both at the state level and what we're proposing here locally in the ordinance. So going through those sections, we can sort of cross-reference the sections of the ordinance that are now reflected or made obsolete by today's regulatory framework. First, the definitions section. The ordinance defines psilocybin mushrooms and personal possession, whereas state law defines personal use a little bit more broadly in some ways and more specifically in other ways. And then the state law also defines natural medicine more broadly to include psilocybin as well as psilocin, DMT, ibogaine, and mescaline. Initiated Ordinance 301 made enforcement of criminal penalties for personal use of psilocybin mushrooms the lowest law enforcement priority, whereas state law permits personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms as well as those other psychedelic substances, essentially rendering that provision obsolete. The initiated ordinance prohibits the city from using its funds and resources to assist in enforcement of criminal penalties for psilocybin use and possession. Today, the city will need to expend resources on necessary and thoughtful enforcement of state and local laws related to natural medicine. And finally, the initiated ordinance created that Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Policy Review Panel. That panel has since presented its report of findings and recommendations to City Council and has since disbanded. But applicable panel recommendations have been incorporated into the city's management strategy for natural medicine implementation going forward. So this is a brief overview of the regulatory framework that is in place at the state level and is being proposed in the ordinance that's before you today. This repeal proposal is part of a larger proposal to license natural medicine healing centers in Denver and regulate natural medicine generally. So the state regulatory framework is divided among two primary departments. The Department of Regulatory Agencies, Divisions of Professions and Occupations is responsible for licensing natural medicine facilitators, who are individuals who are authorized to provide natural medicine to adults over the age of 21 and supervise their natural medicine experience. And then the Division of Professions and Occupations also oversees the Natural Medicine Advisory Board, which is a governor-appointed board that advises both state agencies on rulemaking and policy around natural medicine. The Department of Revenue's Division of Natural Medicine is responsible for licensing natural medicine businesses. So that includes cultivation facilities where natural medicine is grown, manufacturing facilities which take the cultivated natural medicine and turn it into products such as tea bags, chocolates, gummies, things of that nature. Testing laboratories, which are licensed to test natural medicine and natural medicine products for potency and contaminants. And finally, the Healing Center, which is the facility where an adult can go to obtain natural medicine, have a supervised administration session, but are not permitted to leave with any natural medicine. So there are no retail sales at healing centers. It is for on-site supervised use only. Local jurisdictions are authorized to enact ordinances and regulations governing the time, place, and manner of natural medicine licenses, but we cannot prohibit the establishment or operation of natural medicine licenses, so there is no opt-out ability. Local jurisdictions can't prohibit the transportation of natural medicine on public roads by licensed persons, and we can't adopt ordinances or regulations that are unreasonable or in conflict with state law. So our proposed local license requirement in the ordinance is for healing centers only. So we would require a local business license for a healing center, and they would also be required to get that state business license. There are two exemptions that we're proposing for that healing center license requirement. The first is for members of federally recognized American tribes who are performing religious ceremonies that are not associated with business activity. And the second is for healing centers that allow only clinical facilitators to perform natural medicine services. So there are two types of facilitators, a standard facilitator and a clinical facilitator. A clinical facilitator also holds a secondary professional license that authorizes them to diagnose and treat physical, mental, or behavioral health conditions. And then we are not proposing a local license requirement for cultivation facilities, manufacturing facilities, or testing facilities. Those businesses would only be required to get the state license. We felt that the state rules are robust, comprehensive, and fairly limiting in what those businesses can do, and so did not feel that there was an additional gap that needed to be filled by a local license. Our proposed time, place, and manner requirements are outlined in the ordinance. What you will not see in the ordinance is a limitation on hours of operation for natural medicine healing centers or any type of natural medicine business. What you will see in the ordinance is that there is authority for the Director of Excise and Licenses to impose reasonable restrictions on a license if an investigation indicates that it's necessary. So if there were a healing center operating in a way that that indicated that a limitation on hours of operation was necessary, then the director could impose a limit on hours of operation on that specific business. State law requires that a healing center license can't be issued within 1,000 feet of a child care center, preschool, elementary, middle, junior, or high school, or a residential child care facility. Local jurisdictions are authorized to vary that restriction, but you will see that Proximity restriction is reflected in the ordinance, so we are proposing aligning with state law there. And finally, state rules prohibit advertising of natural medicine that appeals to minors or misappropriates Native American or Indigenous cultures. This ordinance takes that one step further and also prohibits all outdoor advertising of natural medicine. And that's very similar to how we prohibit outdoor advertising for marijuana. And that concludes my presentation.
And thank you very much. For the record, Councilmember Lewis, can you please put Council Bill 250132 on the floor for final passage?
I move that Council Bill 250132 be placed upon final consideration and do pass.
It has been moved and seconded. Thank you. Sure. We have 10 individuals signed up to speak this evening. If you are here in person, after your name is called, please make your way up to the podium. If you are here in Zoom, please accept the promotion when called. First up, we have Travis Tyler Flunk, virtually. Next up, we have Natasha Poinsett.
Hello, my name is Natasha Poinsett. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am the Colorado director of a nonprofit called the Healing Advocacy Fund, which has been really involved in the implementation process for the Natural Medicine Health Act over the past 2 years, working closely with the state agencies tasked with regulating this new program. And I've emailed you all about some thoughts on the ordinance in terms of recommendations for considering amending the setback from schools and daycare. I understand now at the second reading that it's unlikely that there are going to be changes made today, and I think at this point it's more important to simply get this ordinance passed and for Denver to be able to start licensing these new organizations. And so I really just wanted to take this time to speak to you all today and sort of call or bring the conversation back to what this is about and sort of emphasize the importance of what is represented by this bill. And so really at the core, this is about mental health and the fact that Colorado and the country as a whole are facing a mental health crisis that continues to become more dire every day. I work really closely with licensed providers, kind of every combination of letters you could think of. And what we hear over and over again is that, you know, we don't have the tools to help so many people. People are struggling with depression, with anxiety, with PTSD, and with other conditions that are incredibly hard to treat, and we don't have a lot of answers. And so what we know from the clinical research into psilocybin-assisted therapy is that it can be a powerful tool for healing. It can help people process trauma and support in their recovery. And so I'm just, looking forward to the next steps as we implement this bill statewide. And would just urge council to keep an eye on the impact of the setback and the other zoning restrictions, especially thinking about the opportunities for small practices like therapists and other small group practices to be able to add psilocybin therapy at their existing location, which in some cases could be made a little bit more difficult by certain approaches to zoning. But overall, I just really want to thank the excise and licensing team for putting this forward and for the hard work and thought that went into regulating this in the city of Denver. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jesse Paris virtually.
Good evening, members of council, those watching at home. My name is Jessica LaShawn Paris, and I'm representing for Black Star Action Movement for Self-Defense, Positive Action Community for Social Change, as well as the Unity Party of Colorado, the East Denver Residents Council, Frontline Black News, about the Black Experience Enhanced, and I reside at the CCA's own Fusion Studios, Chantel Lewis, District of District 8. I'm in support of this. Initially I was against the decriminalization. My mate informed me that this actually does help people that are suffering from depression, which I have been for almost a decade now, and her as well as other mental disorders and illnesses. So I think that this is going to help a lot of people. My question is, how do you go about getting referred to have this as your medication for your mental illness? Also, is this being offered to everybody or only on a case-by-case basis? And how quickly will patients be able to receive the service? Will Medicaid cover this as well, or Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare? And that's what I would like to know. So if you could please answer those questions, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll see y'all next week.
Thank you. Next up virtually, we have Riley Steidel.
Hi, my name is Riley Steidel. I am from Evergreen, Colorado. I'm a healthcare worker and a former Mayo Clinic scientist. I just recently stopped working at the best hospital in Colorado. I also identify as a survivor of sexual assault, someone who has suffered from multiple traumatic brain injuries, and somebody who has PTSD. I am against CB 250132. I also own a local business that helps people access mushrooms. I healed through the use of psilocybin without the use of a healing center. My relationship with mushrooms began 15 years ago. And like I said, 2 years ago, I developed a community model to promote harm reduction and access to psilocybin through gifting events and grow classes. I also am the only girl to ever win the Denver Shroom Cup in 2024. And I believe strongly in people accessing safe medication. I've helped give away over 10 pounds of mushrooms, and I've collected over 1,000 garments that I've given directly to people who needed them in the Denver area. Something that concerns me about this bill, if it were to pass, is that permitting something to happen and agreeing to not penalize people for something are not the same thing. I am against this bill because I believe that it could potentially limit people like me from helping others. You should not make it obsolete. So it said that the bill would make it obsolete. Making the bill obsolete would help it would make everything streamlined. But I believe that if you make this bill obsolete, you eliminate the language where it prohibits city funds and resources from being used to enforce criminal penalties for the personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms. There are many ways to improve lives through the use of psychedelic mushrooms and provide care without opening up the door to penalize those who do not have access to a license. There are many legacy growers and facilitators who are more equipped to safely provide mushrooms and care to those who need it than someone who only has experience with mushrooms because they took a certification course. If creating licensed healing centers in this bill are meant to move the psychedelic movement forward and give access to more people, why is the in favor side looking to overturn the ordinance that prohibits spending city funds and resources on the enforcement of state and local natural medicine laws? So I hope that you're moved by my story. I hope that you hear our voice as unlicensed people who help people access mushrooms. Thank you for letting me speak today and for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Evan Surga. Evan. Next up, we have Aaron Spallini. Aaron. Next up, we have Kyle Obenberger. Kyle. Callie Obenberger? No. Andrew Givens. Andrew, if you'll accept the promotion.
Yep.
Yep, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so my name is Andrew Givens. I'm a Denver native, and I've been suffering from bipolar disorder, treatment-resistant bipolar disorder, as well as adult ADD, and I also have an anxiety disorder. I started cultivating psychedelic mushrooms to help myself, and I'm really worried that this regulation will cut me off from access to the medicine that I require. Requiring people to go into these treatment centers that will cost thousands of dollars for treatment, first of all, will make it so that people who can't afford the thousands of dollars will not get the treatment. And it also doesn't allow for people who microdose daily to do that. I also think that by passing this, what you're going to do is you're going to cut off access to not just myself, but a lot of people who really need the help and voted for this. And I don't understand how you can justify cutting off access that people voted for. I don't have thousands of dollars. Lots of people I know don't have thousands of dollars. I'm actually also speaking for Erin Spillane, who was not on her phone a minute ago when she was called. And I'm also speaking for numerous friends of mine that I work with. I work in the restaurant industry. Many of us suffer from anxiety disorders, and none of us can afford thousands of dollars to go into a treatment center. So passing this bill, I think, is not only irresponsible socially, it's irresponsible medically as well. I want to thank you all for your time, and I hope my story moved you. I hope it influences your decision to not pass this bill. That's all I really have to say. Thank you all very much, and I wish everyone the best.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Kevin Dreyer.
Hi. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think this is an absolutely terrible option for psychedelics, mental health, and Denver's kind of attractiveness for businesses. We bring in a lot of business. We had the MAPS convention last year, which brought in thousands of people from all over the world. And Denver right now is kind of the forefront of the psychedelic community in America, with a few exceptions. But Denver has a really good thing going right now, and this is a terrible thing that'll undo a lot of progress. There's language in here talking about mitigating risk and eliminating confusion, but they don't talk about what the confusion is. I think this is much ado about nothing, making a big problem when there's not really one, and it's a way to generate a lot more licenses and fees, which is anti-democratic. It excludes smaller businesses that might not be able to compete with large investment capital. So that's another reason this is an anti-democratic bill, which is going to try and repeal an ordinance. It's just a bad move every which way, and I think we can do a lot better as a city than continue anti-democratic tendencies that are bad for people's mental health. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers. Do we have questions from members of council on Council Bill 250132? Councilwoman Alvidrez.
Thank you, Council President. I do have a few questions. First of all, thank you for coming. Thank you to everyone that came to speak. I have a question for the department on why only recognize federally recognized tribes.
Thanks for the question, Councilwoman. We discussed this quite a bit in our discussions with our city attorney's office, and the reason for limiting the exception to members of federally recognized tribes is just for the purposes of enforcement and creating a bright line for enforcement and being able to verify if somebody is a member of a federally recognized tribe, as opposed to just claiming that that heritage.
My concern would be other tribes that are not from the United States, like Aztec tribe, like Peru, like Inca, Zapoteca. So there's no space for those tribal members to do their practices in Denver.
No, they can continue to do their religious and ceremonial practices. In the state law, there's an exemption for any individual who is performing a bona fide religious, traditional, or I'm forgetting the third phrase, but ceremony. So not just for members of federally recognized tribes, but for anybody who's doing that sort of practice. They are exempt from getting a state facilitator license, which is that license that's required to be someone who's supervising a natural medicine administration session. So they're exempt from facilitator licensure at the state level. Here at the local level, we're trying to make it clear in our ordinance that they are also exempt from getting a local healing center license. I will look to our city attorneys to see if they have anything else to add. No, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Another follow-up question to that is, are we providing, what does that process for becoming licensed look like right now?
So a healing center that wants to get a license would have to get a state healing center license from the Department of Revenue. And then we are in the process of building an application for our local license. And so they would have to have their state license, and then they would come to us at the local level, submit an online application, pay the application and license fee, which will be $100 for the application fee, that's one time, and then $100 for the license fee on an annual basis. They will have to go through inspections from other city agencies, and then they'll be granted their license and be open for business.
Okay, and from what you previously said, it sounds like federally regulated tribes are exempt from having to get a license altogether?
Individuals who are performing a traditional or religious ceremony that is not associated with a business activity or a commercial activity are not required to get a facilitator license. They do have to inform the people that they're performing that ceremony with or for that they don't have a state facilitator license, and then they would not be required to get a local healing center license.
Okay, that's helpful. And what guardrails exist to prevent businesses from appropriating indigenous knowledge?
That's a great question. The state licensing authority has put rules into place that prohibit any sort of advertising or packaging and labeling of products that misappropriates Native American or indigenous culture. They've put out some guidance as well about what that means. And so, for example, they've said using terms like curandero without having any sort of tie to an indigenous or Native American community would be considered an example of misappropriation. I can provide more of that guidance that the state licensing authority has put out. And then the State Natural Medicine Advisory Board, as well as the state federally recognized tribes and indigenous community working group, are both under the umbrella of the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Both of those groups are putting together recommendations as well around what misappropriation and exploitation might look like.
And are we going to integrate any of that into our city ordinance?
It's not in the ordinance currently, but I think that's something that we wanted to see what guidance came from those two boards before we put anything specific into our ordinance, not being experts ourselves on that topic. But I think that's something that we would be willing to do through rulemaking or through an update to the ordinance if needed.
Okay, and is there an affordability framework to ensure that natural medicine doesn't become a luxury wellness product and that it does remain accessible to people?
So at the local level, we've kept our license fee as low as possible. So we are permitted to subsidize license fees where there's a compelling need. We just can't charge more than what it costs to administer the license. Our license fee is substantially lower than the state license fees, and so that's how we're trying to keep costs low for the business so that they can keep costs low for their patients. As far as affordability, I think that will be an ongoing concern, an issue for patients or participants who want to access these natural medicine services, and I think that's an issue that the state legislature and the state rulemaking authorities may have to address in the future.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few more questions, but I'll love to hear what my colleagues ask first. Thank you, Council President. Thank you so much for those answers.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Lewis.
Thank you. I actually have only 2 questions. You all have been very thorough, and I really appreciate you in your time. We received a lot of written testimony in opposition based on the repeal of 301. Can you confirm that the repeal doesn't touch criminalization or personal use?
It does not criminalize personal use. Personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms, as well as other forms of natural medicine, is legal at the state level, and so it's legal here in Denver. The ordinance defines psilocybin mushrooms a little bit differently than the state law, and so that's part of why we want to align so that we ensure that what's legal at the state level is legal here in Denver. In terms of the prioritization of enforcement of psilocybin personal use, I think repealing that doesn't, in my opinion, further criminalize natural medicine use, but it's something that we want to continue to work with our partners at Department of Safety and have started those conversations around training for law enforcement officers about what is now legal in terms of both substances as well as personal use, possession, and then sharing amongst adults.
Great, thank you. And the second question I have, again from the public comment, would this change prevent personal cultivation and use?
No, it would not prevent personal cultivation or prohibit personal cultivation. The state law allows adults 21 and older to cultivate natural medicine on private property in an area that doesn't exceed 12 feet by 12 feet. And so that would also be the law here in Denver.
Thank you so much. That's it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Navidrez.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that question, where it talks about enforcement priorities, the slides aren't numbered, but it talks about state law permits personal use and possession, and then it says this is now going to be enforced just at the lowest law enforcement. So that's a little confusing when you say it's not criminalizing it, but when I read this slide, it looks like it is criminalizing it. Just moving it from not criminal to now being the lowest law enforcement priority.
So the initiated ordinance made it the lowest law enforcement priority to enforce criminal penalties for personal possession and use of psilocybin mushrooms. And so by repealing that, we are repealing any sort of prioritization in ordinance about enforcement of psilocybin mushrooms, the personal use and possession of psilocybin mushrooms. I think where we see a need to do enforcement will really be for those businesses that are operating sort of in a gray area or in an unlicensed area. There are businesses in Denver that operate currently offering natural medicine for people to use and people to consume on site, and even offering it for sale. And so in order to support the regulated market and the licensed market that the voters voted for in Proposition 122, we would need to be able to do some enforcement to bring those unlicensed operators into compliance. So that's part of why we're proposing a local license for healing centers, so that we have, as excise and licenses, the ability to do administrative enforcement rather than criminal enforcement. So we can go to those businesses and say, what you're doing requires a business license. We're requiring you to come in and get a license, as opposed to having to take the step of going to DPD and taking that step of criminal enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Hines.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to touch a little bit more about the interplay between the initiated ordinance that we had here passed, which decriminalized but not legalized psilocybin, and the new state regulation. How much does the state statute, how much does it preempt our initiated ordinance? I believe that's part of the reason why we're doing some repeal, is because the state doesn't let us to do what we did in 2019. So if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, and that's a great question. And on matters of preemption, I always refer to the city attorney's office. So I will ask Genevieve to come up and talk about that.
And if you'll let us know who you are.
Hi, good evening. Genevieve St. Ledger with the Denver City Attorney's Office. When we look at what state law has passed, we are really limited to regulating time, place, and manner. Now, I think there's a little bit of confusion on kind of the history of Article 10 of Chapter 28. That was passed here in Denver while natural medicine remained an illegal controlled substance under state law. Now that state law has decriminalized these substances for personal use, we no longer have a need for Article 10. Article 10, in effect, said, while this is an illegal substance, this is going to be the lowest priority for enforcement of the city. Now that natural medicine is a legal substance that needs to have regulation, we can no longer keep it as the lowest priority.
Thank you for that. One other question, perhaps for excise and licenses. May 7th, 2019, Denver, as you mentioned, was the first city in the nation to decriminalize psilocybin. Can you talk a little bit about, because the work group did some analysis, you certainly did some analysis as well, of what happened between 2019 and, in other cities and other states that kind of help influence our approach. I guess what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at is in 2019, we were the tip of the spear. We were the very head of the nation. But since then, our decriminalization suggested to other entities, other governmental political subdivisions to lean in and go even further, to legalize as opposed to just decriminalize. And so you don't have to go through every bullet point of but perhaps you could just talk a little, maybe a couple or a few examples of how we went from being the tip of the spear to our regulation was actually somewhat conservative relative to what other people had passed.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I don't want to speak on behalf of the people who pushed the Proposition 122 forward and did all of that work at the state level, but I think it looks very similar to Oregon's natural medicine regulatory framework. The state of Oregon has a very similar ballot measure that was passed by voters. I'm not sure of the year, but it was before Colorado passed our ordinance or our ballot measure. And they use the term natural medicine. It's very similar. There are no retail sales. They have supervised administration sessions at healing centers. It looks very similar to Colorado's model. And so I think, Oregon seems to be the state where that really took off, where that supervised use model and legal model, as opposed to the decriminalization model, took off. I think that we are fortunate to not be the first state this time and not be the first city this time implementing this as we were with marijuana. So we're able to look to Oregon for some information. And I think, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but.
Yeah, you are. We can look to Oregon for information, but also we can learn some lessons of how they implemented their policy, and to your point, we just decriminalized, they actually legalized. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Hines. Seeing no other council members in the queue, the public hearing is closed. Comments by members of council on Council Bill 250132. Councilmember Hines.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, community members, and stakeholders, I'm here today in support of Ordinance 250132 because it is the natural evolution of the work we began in Denver years ago. I supported Ordinance 301 in 2019. I served on the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Policy Review Panel, as mentioned. I also served on Denver's Natural Medicine Panel. So far, I can still say that I have not used any of the natural healing medicines that we're talking about today, but what I can say is that I've known numerous members of the disability community who have used psilocybin and other natural medicines, just like cannabis, have moved from incredible amounts of Western medicine to very little of that medicine, all thanks to psilocybin and other natural medicines. So when Denver passed Ordinance 301 in 2019, we were at the very tip of the spear on psilocybin, as I mentioned, psilocybin reform. We led the nation, shifting the conversation away from criminalization and towards acceptance, education, and harm reduction. But being a trailblazer means that the landscape changes quickly behind us. Since May 7th, 2019, when Ordinance 301 passed, other cities, states, and even the federal government have moved the conversation forward. New policies, new research from Johns Hopkins University, and new regulatory and others, and new regulatory frameworks have emerged that go beyond what we envisioned, what the people envisioned in Ordinance 301 back then. As leaders, it is our job to ensure Denver remains at the front of the pack, not just in breaking new ground, but also in making sure we get it right. Progress is not just about saying yes to something new, it's about making sure that what we started continues to work for everyone. That's, I believe, why we're here today. The ordinance does two critical things. First, it updates our regulations to align with a broader state framework established by Prop 122. This means healing centers, facilitators, and businesses will now operate with a clear structure that ensures safety, accountability, and access. Second, it minimizes risks that detractors could seize upon. It minimizes risks that detractors could seize upon to undermine the progress we've made, just as we did with cannabis. We in Denver led the way in cannabis legalization, and we also led in regulating it responsibly to ensure long-term success. This is the same kind of thoughtful, risk-averse progress that allows natural medicine to be a sustainable part of our city's future. As we heard in testimony, some people have asked why we should repeal Ordinance 301. The answer is simple. We don't need it anymore. So we've heard personal possession, personal growth is still available. State law has already surpassed what Ordinance 301 originally set out to do. Keeping it on the books only creates confusion and regulatory conflicts. So instead of holding on to an outdated law, we should embrace a stronger, clearer system that builds on what we started. This is about responsible governance. This is about ensuring access while ensuring safety at the same time. This is about keeping Denver at the forefront of progress, not just as the first to act, but as the city that gets it right. For these reasons, I'll be voting yes on Ordinance 250132, and I invite my colleagues to join me in continuing Denver's leadership by embracing progress, ensuring accountability, and securing the future of natural medicine in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hines. Seeing no other comments by members of council, Madam Secretary, roll call on Council Bill 250132.
Cashman? Cashman? Alvidrez?
Aye.
Flynn? Gilmore?
Aye.
Gonzalez Gutierrez?
Aye.
Hines?
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Parity?
Aye.
Romero Campbell?
Aye.
Sawyer?
Aye.
Torres?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Madam President.
Aye. Do you want to try Councilman Cashman one more time?
Yes, Cashman.
Aye.
Madam Secretary, close the voting and announce the results.
13 ayes.
13 ayes, Council Bill 250132 has passed. There being no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned.